you wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
Hey, friends and neighbors, what do you say? Good morning. Great to see you this morning. This is The Bill Press Show. We're coming to you live from our nation's capital, Washington, D.C., bringing you up to date on all the news of the day, whether it's happening here in our nation's capital, around the country, around the globe. Coming to you live on your local progressive talk radio station, on Free Speech TV, and worldwide on our video stream, TawkrTV. Events in the nation's capital. Hi, everybody. It's Bill Press. This year marks the 10th anniversary of doing the Bill Press Show, every day covering the news of the day with the nation's top newsmakers, either on the line or in our studio right here on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. Not only that, I go to the White House briefings every day to get answers to the top questions of the day. Bottom line, if it's happening in Washington, D.C., either at the White House or the Capitol, we are all over it. Every day, we welcome to our studio political leaders and reporters and labor leaders and newsmakers to help us understand the issues of the day. We started out as a radio show only, but over the years, we have branched out to all forms of the new media. So today, we're not just a radio show. We are podcasting, streaming audio, streaming video, and we are simulcast live on Free Speech TV nationwide, reaching out to 40 million households on Free Speech TV, in addition to hundreds of thousands on local radio stations and online.
AFGE is so proud to be associated with this show and looks forward to being working with Bill and this show for a long time.
Bill Press is the right man at the right time with the right message.
And thanks to the Bill Press Show, we get our message out to thousands and thousands of people every day. Thank you, Bill Press.
The Teamsters are a proud partner with Bill Press on his show, telling the truth about what's going on with working families. Tune in.
Yes, it's been a fun and exciting 10 years so far for the Bill Press Show. We're looking forward to many more with all of you, broadcasting live every morning from the nation's capital.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
It's on us to stop sexual assault.
To get in the way before it happens.
To get a friend home safe.
And to not blame the victim.
It's on us.
To look out for each other.
To not look the other way.
It's on us to stand up.
To step in.
To take responsibility.
It's on us, all of us,
to stop sexual assault.
Learn how and take the pledge at itsonus.org.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
Hey, what do you say, sports fans? Good to see you today. Welcome back. Welcome back to me, that is, indeed, on this Monday, August 24. Good to be back with you. Thank you so much for joining us, the Bill Press Show. Last week of August, some of you still out on vacay, some of you already back. And we've got a lot to talk about today here on Free Speech TV and on worldwide on our video stream, TawkrTV. President Obama back. Oh, by the way, got to tell you, the only bumper stickers, a little political news here, the only bumper stickers I saw in California the whole time I was there were for Bernie Sanders. And I only saw one bumper sticker in the state of Oregon, and that was for Donald Trump. There you go. Hey, I'm not the only one back. President Obama back at the White House today. Later this afternoon, he'll take off for Las Vegas, where Harry Reid yesterday announced his support for the big Iran deal. That's a big boost for President Obama. He'll spend the night on Las Vegas and back to the White House the next day. The rest of the week, he'll be working on the Iran deal, meeting with a group of Jewish leaders at the White House later in the week. This morning, big news on the international front. 3 Americans receiving the Legion of Honor Award, the highest honor that the government of France gives any citizen. And they got that award, of course, for their courage and their heroism last week, thwarting the attempt of an extremist to kill many people on the train, high-speed train from Amsterdam to Paris. Meanwhile, the buzz here in Washington, D.C. is that Joe Biden must really be getting serious about thinking about running for president. He met last week here at his official residence with Senator Elizabeth Warren. Could we be seeing a Biden-Warren ticket in 2016? That's great news and ought to make the Hillary people very, very nervous. So much to talk about. Give us a call to jump in and give us your comments on all of the above at 866-55-PRESS. Happy Monday.
This is the Bill Press Show.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
It's on us to stop sexual assault.
To get in the way before it happens.
To get a friend home safe. And to not blame the victim.
It's on us.
To look out for each other.
To
not look the other way.
It's on us to stand up.
To step in.
To take responsibility.
It's on us, all of us,
to stop sexual assault.
Learn how and take the pledge at itsonus.org.
I grew up in the housing projects of Cleveland. I didn't even know that life could be any better than it was. Education for me has been a way to get away from the agony of what was normal life. I want to be able to impact the community, not just look back on where I came from, but to reach back to where I came from and pull some people up with me. My name is David, and I am your dividend.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies. In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer.
Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now.
Please.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds. At highway speeds, that's enough time to travel the length of a football field. Stop the texts, stop the wrecks.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
For President Obama and for me, vacation is over, back to work. If you call this work, that is. Hey, hello, everybody. Great to see you. How about it? On a big Monday, August 24. Hello. Wherever you happen to be in this great land of ours, we are glad to see you today and welcome you to the program, The Bill Press Show, live from Washington, D.C., our nation's capital, and our studio on Capitol Hill, live with you on your local progressive talk radio station. Wherever you happen to be in this great land of ours, live with you on Free Speech TV nationwide, and live with you worldwide on our video stream, TawkrTV, youtube.com/Tawker, TAWKRTV. Hello. Hope you're enjoying the summer. It's just about over, but some of us back from our summer vacay. Some of you still out there. Wherever you happen to be, thank you for joining us and being part of the program today. With lots to talk about, everything from the president coming back, getting down to work on securing support for the Iran nuclear deal. Senate Democratic leader Harry Reid coming out officially in support of the deal yesterday, which is a big boost for President Obama. And we all celebrate the story of 3 brave American servicemen who thwarted a terrorist attempt on that high-speed train from Amsterdam to Paris. Those 3 Americans rewarded with the Legion of Honor by President François Hollande of France this morning in Paris. We'll talk about it all. Take your calls at 866-55-PRESS. And get your comments, of course. Look forward to hearing from you on Twitter at BP Show and on Facebook at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. No, you can't keep the team together. We have tried this summer. I don't think there's been one day this summer when all 4 of the regulars have been here.
We're so close today. Just so close.
We're close. We got 4 out of 5 today, but Peter Ogburn decided he was still going to keep the tradition going. So he's off today for a few days. Maybe toward the end of the week. Maybe one day this week we'll get us all in. Elise Murphy keeping the train running here.
Hey, good morning.
Hello. Who was also, welcome back, off last week. Jamie Benson, ready to take your calls after he finishes another important duty. Jamie, good to see you. And Cyprian Bolding, yes, he's back on the job from a long time back from Paris and other venues as well. I must say, trying to follow the news such as I was able to during my vacation in Oregon and California, the thing that struck me the most was the news about President Jimmy Carter. What courage he showed coming forward with just incredible, positive attitude about being diagnosed with cancer, and said, his faith carries him through. He's ready for whatever comes. He had an extraordinary news conference last week. And yesterday, here is a 90-year-old former president back on the job teaching Sunday school and celebrating his 90th birthday down in outside of Plains, Georgia. His wife, Rosalind, there with him, saying this is 69 birthdays that they've celebrated together.
I've had 69 birthdays with him.
maybe even more than that.
And Jimmy Carter, his message to the Sunday school crowd, there were so many people who came from all over the country for Sunday school in a little church that holds about like 50 people. So they had the Sunday school in a conference hall, and one in a high school. But they had to schedule a second Sunday school class, and even then he couldn't get everybody in. Yesterday, over 700 people turned out to hear him talk about loving your neighbor.
Love God, yes. But orient yourself to love the person, no matter who it might be, that's in front of you at any particular time.
Great message. Reporters who covered that news conference last week said, he was so upbeat, so cheerful, so friendly that it was almost you forgot that he called this news conference to talk about the fact that his cancer had spread to his brain, and he talked about the treatment that he was going to be undertaking. So we send our best thoughts, of course, to former President Jimmy Carter, who's a real fighter. He'll fight this like he's fought everything, every good cause in his life. So we got lots to talk about today. Joe Cirincione, our foreign policy guru, will be here to give us the latest on the Iran deal and what it looks like. We've got reporters coming in from The Hill, from Huffington Post, and from the National Journal. And Karl Frisch will be here as a friend of Bill. And did you hear about the exciting meeting in Washington last week? But first,
this is the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories for you on this Monday morning. Straight out of Compton details the rise of the legendary hip-hop group NWA in the early 90s.
Yeah, I want to see that movie.
For the second straight week, they have topped the box office. Second week numbers came in at $26.8 million, propelling the current total to $111.5 million. The film has received some negative press as of late. Did you see this, Bill?
Yeah.
Dr. Dre, NWA's most famous member and now in a senior position at Apple, has taken some heat for his history of abuse towards women, which he finally apologized for in a statement to the New York Times on Saturday.
Right, saw that, yeah.
But either way, this film just keeps on rolling. They finished ahead of the horror film Sinister 2 and Fox's video game adaptation Hitman Agent 47. Two films I'd never heard of.
Yeah, it's been a long time since he said and did a lot of that stuff. Still, it was pretty ugly stuff. But he has apologized for it. Good for him.
Right.
But he just released his new album too, Dr. Dre, didn't he?
Yeah.
And it kind of it has some of the same sentiment in that album.
Really?
So it's interesting that he is getting that heat.
Yeah. Barbara Gigi Shippey was a Rhode Island native who passed away last week at the age of 74. Her obituary, published in the Providence Journal, asks, quote, "In lieu of flowers, please make memorial contributions to Tom Brady's Deflategate defense, as she was the ultimate Patriots fan, or to the charity of your choice." Bill, I think I know where you'll be making your donation.
Not to Tom Brady.
This, of course, is not a real fund. Shippey was likely referring to the $1 million the NFL fined the Patriots.
Oh.
By the way, the Deflategate case, the judge will be issuing a ruling by September 4th if no settlement has been reached by that date.
Oh, okay.
We're all praying for you, Jamie.
Thank you, guys. I know you're all on my side. On this, both of you. On Wednesday, zookeepers at the National Zoo discovered a fetus during an ultrasound performed on Mei Zhang, a giant panda at the zoo. Saturday, not one, but 2 cubs were born. A zoo official said they are doing, quote, really, really well. Mei Zhang has only had 2 cubs that have survived birth, and this is the first time she has given birth to multiple healthy cubs at one time. So very exciting news.
Very exciting.
Oh, are you kidding? Yeah, go to the Panda Cam.
It's beautiful.
2 little baby cubs, and
they're so tiny.
They're like the size of a mouse. It's amazing how tiny they are, right? And not a hair on them. No,
seriously.
Right? Yeah, but they they figured that some pandas often have twins, and that this could happen. So they had an incubator nearby. They had an incubator ready.
So they were ready.
Just in case, because they figured that the history is, been reading so much about this, that the panda cubs have, mommy pandas have a hard time taking care of 2 cubs. And usually what happens is one of them will die because the other one's getting more care. So they alternate the babies. One in the incubator, one with the mom, and then they switch places every 3 hours or something like that.
So that won't happen here.
That's awesome.
Fingers crossed. Right. Yeah, exactly. They're ready. Good for them. Very, very exciting. Almost as exciting as the news on the political front. Yes, I do want you to know the extent of my political research while I was on the West Coast the last 10 days was looking for bumper stickers. I didn't see a lot of bumper stickers, I must say. The campaign is not really, the grassroots element of the campaign is not really in full swing yet. But I saw one bumper sticker in the state of Oregon. I was in Bend, Oregon, around that area. And the only bumper sticker I saw was for Donald Trump. A little redneck territory there. And then down in California, in the Bay Area, San Francisco and in Marin County, I saw lots of bumper stickers, and every single one of them was for Bernie Sanders. Bernie, feeling the burn in California. No doubt about it. Tweeted that out. Maybe you saw it. That's the one tweet I sent the entire time I was on vacation. But the big news here in Washington, D.C., the continued big news about Bernie on the Democratic side. But the other big news is, and, we talked about this just before I left, that there was news that maybe, just maybe, Joe Biden was reconsidering or running in 2016 and maybe taking it a little more seriously. Well, that has gotten more and more real while I was gone, as you have probably heard. The vice president, while President Obama was up in Martha's Vineyard, the vice president with his family down in South Carolina and then up at his home in Wilmington, Delaware, spent days and days and days meetings with his very top people and on the phone with donors around the country, big Democratic donors, some of whom have already committed to Hillary Clinton, but some of whom are saying if Joe runs, they may reconsider or support both candidates or whatever. The point is, out of these meetings, no doubt about it, he has gotten very, very serious about perhaps running, they see an opening in that Bernie Sanders has shown that there's a lot of support for a candidate who's going to fight for the middle class, and that's been Joe Biden's message as well. And also they see that the Hillary Clinton campaign is slipping a little bit. They're still tangled up in this email controversy, and her poll numbers are slipping. She's still way ahead, but her poll numbers are slipping in some of the key primary states, meaning there may be an opening there for Joe Biden as they see it. And remember, he has never said never. Last January, asked by George Stephanopoulos, is there any chance you could run against Hillary?
Yes, there's a chance.
Yeah, there you go.
But I haven't made my mind up about that. We got a lot of work to do between now and then. There's plenty of time. Look, the person who is going to end Secretary Clinton is a really competent, capable person and a friend. The person who is going to be the next president of the United States is the one who's going to be able to articulate the clearest vision to the American people of where they're going to take the country.
Yes, and he said that, and then George Stephanopoulos asked him, okay, so when are you going to make up your mind?
Well, I don't think you have to make up your mind until the summer. I think I think this is wide open on both sides. But look, right now my focus is getting implemented what the president talked about last night to nail down this recovery and get the middle class back in the game.
All right, you don't have to decide until the summer, but this is nearing the end. We're in the summer now, nearing the end of the summer. So what's going on? Well, part of the vice president's deliberations included, we just learned last week, a big meeting here in Washington, D.C. He was up in Wilmington, Delaware at his home, and he made a fast trip down to Washington, D.C., previously unscheduled, to meet at his residence here, the Naval Observatory, with Senator Elizabeth Warren. Now remember, a lot of us were hoping Elizabeth Warren would run for president. And all she would say previously is she just thinks there ought to be a real healthy primary that's good for the party.
Look, I think there needs to be a vigorous debate in the whole question about running for president. I think everyone who's running for president should be talking about what they plan to do to strengthen and rebuild America's middle class. Let's be clear, this has been my lifetime's work, and I have watched year by year by year where America's middle class just has to take one punch after another. We've reached a point, this isn't going to work anymore.
What do you think? Joe Biden and Elizabeth Warren, how exciting. The fact that they met, what could this mean? Let's talk about it. 866-55-PRESS. Elizabeth Warren, let me make it clear, she did not endorse Joe Biden. Joe Biden has not announced, but it's got the buzz going here in Washington, D.C. Could this be the sign of something really exciting? Could this be the first step toward a Biden-Warren ticket? I mean, it's almost the best of both worlds, right? You get Joe Biden with all of his experience. You get Elizabeth Warren with all of her energy. And you get two fighters for the middle class. And you get a woman who is ready to step in as the next president of the United States. After Joe Biden has his turn, he has said, I indicated one time he might only run for one term. How exciting that would be, Joe Biden, Elizabeth Warren. I want to ask you, is this something that, well, first of all, what do you think about this potential ticket? And also, for all of you Bernie supporters and all of you Hillary supporters, do you see this as a big threat? Here we go. Joe Biden and Elizabeth Warren, 866-55-PRESS. What's wrong with that ticket?
This is the Bill Press Show.
Hey, Free Speech TV world, it's Mama and the Mooks here at the Stephanie Miller Show.
Hello. Good morning.
You know, Seinfeld was about nothing. I think the Stephanie Miller Show is about everything.
A little bit everything.
Yeah, a little
it's
bit.
Kind of everything like thrown into a blender and we hit frappe.
Right.
With wine poured in.
Right. Senators, fart jokes, politics, pop culture, entertainment.
Drinking.
Drinking, random stray thoughts. It's what all the hip kids are talking about.
Yep.
We have the smartest, funniest people in the country on this show, do we not?
We absolutely do.
Right?
And our sexy liberal army of callers call in every day to tell us all about it.
There you go. And some right-wingers that Travis particularly enjoys talking to.
They're my favorites.
Okay. You can watch us every weekday from 9 to noon Eastern or 6 to 9 Pacific, which is really early. But we still, we try to, we're still pulling in people like Rob Reiner, Lily Tomlin, Frangela, you name it. You can only get it here at the Stephanie Miller Show. Mama, Mooks, fancy celebrities.
And everything.
And fart jokes.
Free Speech TV.
We came here to Foster City where we're going to watch UC Berkeley, a University of California SWAT team, do a hostage rescue scenario.
Should I put the water in there now? Yeah, go ahead.
So this is like some kind of chemical agent?
Yeah. Copy, we're ready. I'm gonna get shot. I already know it, dude. Fiend's yelling at me. Help me. Shoot your hands. Help me. Shoot your hands. Back away.
Gentlemen, we have a chemical. We need to pull our person out. Get these guys out of here. Pull them out. Put your hands on your face. Put your hands on your face. Keep him covered.
Your head up. He's got a shotgun back there.
That's all right. Keep his hands up where we can.
Hands on your face.
Hands on your face. On your face.
Someone cover me. I got a holster up, bro.
Okay, pull him around the corner. Pick him up. Get him out of the building. Quickly. We've got this. Let's get that guy out of there. You, come towards us. Keep your hands on your face. Turn around. Face away from us. Back towards us. Quickly. Back up towards me. Quickly, quickly, quickly. Pull him out of the room. We're exfilling, Billy? Yes, we are exfilling.
It was actually around 92, 94. There was an attack on the chancellor at his residence, which is on campus. And we realized at the time that we didn't have any resources to deal with that kind of threat when it took place. So, and I think about 15 years before, they had some kind of semblance of a SWAT team. So they regenerated the idea of
I see.
activating a SWAT team.
And then since then, you guys have kind of branched out to doing what kind of stuff?
Well, since then, we train for everything. We train for every eventuality, barricaded subjects. Like I said, most of what we do is high-risk warrants.
And it's something like it could be like a mugging kind of thing, just like on the street.
Depends.
Or
I mean,
like
a mugging, but if it's armed, particularly.
Right, an armed mugging.
Yeah. Right.
Okay.
Exactly. Okay. And then obviously we're looking for training for anything else. That we might be faced with, and that's what's great about Urban Shield is we couldn't duplicate this on our own.
To the Wall Street Journal this morning, he is actually leaning toward running now. One person who has been at these meetings in the vice president's home up in Wilmington, Delaware, says that the meeting with Elizabeth Warren means that he has pivoted from a potential to a likely candidate in 2016. Still hasn't made a final decision. But that meeting with Elizabeth Warren has got a lot of buzz going. What do you think? Tom, up in Boston, Mass., a constituent of Senator Elizabeth Warren. What do you think, Tom?
Well, I think, William, first of all, welcome you and Elise back from vacation.
Thank you. Yep.
It's good to see you in the captain's chair. I think the perfect Democratic ticket would be Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren or Bernie Sanders and Bill Press.
Tom.
Middle class.
Listen.
It's not too late, Bill.
Flattery will get you anywhere with me, Tom. I appreciate hearing from you. Welcome back. Yes, and it's good to be back in the captain's chair this morning, and thanks to all those who occupied it while I was gone and did such a good job. On Biden, Warren, Ron's down in Paisley, Florida. Hey, how about it, Ron?
Hey, I worry that Bernie is not electable nationally. I like everything he says. If you put Biden in there that's more moderate, and you couple him with Warren, who is my idea of a female Bernie, you got everything in the one package right there.
Well, it looks that way to me, too, Ron. Again, I'm a big Bernie. I like Hillary. I like Martin O'Malley. I love Bernie. But I have to say, I think a Biden-Warren ticket could be just the ticket for 2016. Let's make it happen. 866-55-PRESS. More talk coming up.
This is the Bill Press Show.
How I've been affected by gun violence over the years is through deaths of friends and family members and associates.
When I was 5 years old, I was held at gunpoint in a home invasion.
I've gone to the juvenile detention centers, and I've met dozens of young kids, babies really, who have been affected by gun violence.
Directly, I've lost a few friends, but I think why this touches my heart is having children of my own.
I've been at parties where, I had just left the party and, maybe 10, 15 minutes later, I heard that, somebody got shot and didn't make it.
There are a lot of people benefiting off of our pain, and it's time we do something.
I'm here to unload my investment because I think that it's important that we start kind of seeing where our money is going.
It's time to go to your financial advisor and demand that there are no gun investments in your 401k.
Even if you don't have investments, you can still help spread the word.
This is something everyone can do.
So if you push your people that have 401ks, it might be your grandma, it might be your cousin, this effort can make a big impact.
I'm unloading for my loved ones that I lost.
I'm unloading for my 18-year-old self.
I'm unloading my 401k for the future of my children.
I'm unloading.
I'm unloading
for my family and their future.
I'm unloading so that my daughter can grow up in a safe, loving world.
Unload and join the movement.
Use hashtag I'm unloading to pledge your support for gun-free investing.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
The most valuable morning radio show, according to The Nation magazine. This is The Bill Press Show.
How about it? 33 minutes after the hour. Hey, good to see you on this Monday, August 24, and good to be back with you. Thanks to Igor Volsky and Peter Ogburn, and let's see, Jimmy Williams. Who else was in last week?
We had Clinton Yates and Charles Ellison.
Yeah, Charles Ellison and Clinton Yates. There you go. What a great lineup. But I'm back in the captain's chair today, and good to be here with you. The Bill Press Show, live from Washington, D.C. in our studio on Capitol Hill, and brought to you today by the International Association of Machinists. They never take a break. They're always on the job under President Tom Buttenbarger, sharpening America's edge on the global economy. How about it? And for more information on their good work, you can go to their website, goiam.org. Starting out the day talking about the exciting political news, the fact that Vice President Joe Biden clearly more seriously considering a run for president in 2016. If he can put together the necessary support, he has to make a decision, by the way, by October 1, because the first Democratic debate is October 13, and in order to qualify for that debate, he has to be a candidate by that time. So he's got another month or so to make up his mind, and one big step toward making up his mind was that meeting we've been talking about that he had with Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren last week. how exciting the possibility of a Biden-Warren ticket. And let me be clear, I haven't endorsed anybody yet. That I encourage Bernie Sanders to run. I'm very happy that he's running because of the issues that he's running on, particularly the middle class, helping the middle class in this country, taking on Wall Street, helping the middle class. That's something he's been talking about his entire career. In fact, this weekend, again, he was up in New Hampshire, and Bernie was talking about the fact that, okay, Wall Street, they've had their day. Now it's time to get to help the middle class.
When Wall Street collapsed, they went begging to the middle class of this country to bail them out. Now it is their turn to help the middle class of this country.
And that's what he's been talking about, coast to coast, of course. So I'm delighted that Bernie Sanders is running. I love Hillary Clinton. I've always supported her. I remind you again, supported her over Barack Obama in 2008. I'd love to see her as the nominee. Martin O'Malley is a good man with good issues, represents the future of the Democratic Party. Would love to see him up there. But I've always also been a huge Joe Biden fan and a huge Elizabeth Warren fan. And the idea that the two of them might get together, I think would add so much excitement and so much potential to this race. It's something we could all celebrate. Seriously, do you think that there's anybody on the Republican side who could tackle and take on any one of them? No way. I mean, look at all the great resources that we've got on the Democratic side. Very, very exciting. One more comment on that before we move on. Not Bernie Sanders, but Bernie is out in Tenley Park, Illinois. Bernie, what do you think?
I think this shows how Bernie Sanders is getting to the establishment.
Yes.
That are concerned. They're so concerned about him that they're pressing Vice President Biden into action. Because like you just said, Republicans have no one that can beat us.
Yeah. I think you may be right, Bernie, that the Democratic establishment is saying, oh, my God, look what's happening to Hillary. But look what Bernie, how he's resonating around the country, right? So I
agree. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, you've heard me say probably on the show before that I've said from the beginning, the better Bernie does, the more likely it is that Joe gets in the race.
Yes, you did call that, but I think it might be a little late for Vice President Biden unless Hillary's people start dumping money for him, because Bernie's got all the low money, all us $10 guys.
Yeah, that's right, Bernie. Let me tell you something else. A lot of people disagree with me, but I also think if Bernie Sanders is a nominee, I'd love to see him as a nominee. I think Bernie Sanders can win. Bernie Sanders is getting not just Democratic votes, he's getting independent votes, he's getting Republican votes, because he is speaking for the vast, vast majority of Americans. And so these people who say, oh, he's a socialist, he could never win, he's too far to the left, that's a bunch of baloney. Bernie Sanders is right on point in this election with his message. Great conversation on that, folks. Just one more thing I want to touch on before we move along. And Scott Bland from the National Journal Hotline joins us in our next segment here to give us his take on the political news of the day. There's a lot more to talk about. But what a great moment today in Paris to see the president of France, François Hollande, recognize the heroism and the courage of three brave young American soldiers, servicemen who were on that high-speed train, the TGV, from Amsterdam to Paris on Friday, when they spotted a gunman with loaded down with an AK-47 and a handgun and a knife, and who knows what his intentions were. The gunman, insists he just wanted to rob as many people as he could on the train. Yeah, you don't need an AK-47 to rob people. It looks like it was going to be mass slaughter. And these Americans spotted him and then went into action. They are, as you know, Spencer Stone, the man who tackled the gunman, Anthony Sadler, traveling with them, and Alex Scarlatos, who was a National Guard specialist, who's the one who said, let's go. And they had a little news conference yesterday where Alex Scarlatos told about what they saw and how it happened.
I looked back and saw a guy with an AK and a handgun entering our cab, and so Spencer and I ducked down, and I just said to Spencer, "Let's get him, go get him."
Yeah, let's get him, go get him. And by the way, as you probably heard, it was, kind of a miracle of circumstance. They had first-class tickets, and they couldn't find their first-class the first-class car, the first-class seats. So they just took seats in another carriage of the train, another train car, and the Wi-Fi wasn't working that well. And so they said, "Oh, this sucks. We do some email or whatever on the way to Paris." And so then one of them says, "Well, we paid for first-class tickets, so we might as well sit in first class. I'm sure the Wi-Fi is better there." So they left their car and went into another car. Otherwise, they would never have seen this guy in time. They would not have been there in order to thwart him. But at any rate, after Scalado said, "Look, we better get into action," then he turns again to Spencer Stone.
Spencer jumped up and ran at the guy probably 10 meters away and grabbed him. I followed right behind Spencer and grabbed the handgun.
Yeah, I mean, they talk about it so matter-of-factly, and they've said from the beginning, no, this, we're not heroes. We just did what we should have done. We just did what our training taught us to do. We just did what anybody else should do.
And they were childhood friends, too. I mean, they have such a history.
Yeah. No, they've been 3 childhood friends, all in the service, and they all decided to get together when one of them just got back from Iraq and had some leave, and the others joined him there. And they're just going to, buzz around Europe for a couple of weeks together. Spencer Stone, the one who actually tackled the gunman. So the guy goes into the restroom, loads his guns, comes out, and confronts a French passenger. And then that's when they see this scuffle and they see him happen. They see him with the guns, and that's when they go into action. And Spencer Stone again said, "Here's their impression of this guy."
He seemed like he was ready to fight to the end. So were we.
I love that.
Thank God they were.
Yeah.
And thank God they were in that train.
He was ready to fight to the end. Guess what? So were we. Again, the president of Belgium was in Belgian territory at the time. The president of France, the president of the United States, Barack Obama called them and congratulated them both. And then it was Francois Hollande this morning here, starting off in French, of course. Then we hear the translator awarding them the highest award that the French government gives to any civilian, the Legion of Honor.
In the name of France, I would like to thank you for what you've done. Since Friday, the entire world admires your bravery, your self-control, the spirit of responsibility in which you acted.
It's an incredible story. What 3 great young men, and what a great example they showed, and what courage they showed. And it does, I think, force every one of us to think about what we would have done in the same situation. Would we have had the courage to get out of our seats and tackle this guy, or just ducked under our seats? Think about that. We'll come back, talk to Scott Bland. Back to the politics of the day. Scott Bland from the National Journal here. Good to be with you on Monday morning. Calls always welcome at 866-55-PRESS.
This is the Bill Press Show.
When I started learning about nutrition, about which, by the way, much less is known than you might think, I learned that what mattered most about one's health was not necessarily the nutrients, good or bad, that you were consuming or staying away from, or even the calorie counts. But what predicted a healthy diet more than anything else is the fact that it was being cooked by a human being and not a corporation. Corporations cook very differently than people do. They use vast amounts of salt, fat, and sugar. much more than you would ever use in your own cooking. And the reason they do that is those are three incredibly attractive and incredibly cheap ingredients. And when they're layered properly, as in a chip or pastries and forms of junk food, they're incredibly addictive. They really press our buttons. They activate our dopamine network, our cravings. And in fact, people in the industry, they don't talk about addiction in the food industry, even though they traffic in addiction. They talk about craveability. It's the same thing. And snackability is another term they use. It's a lovely word. And then the last point about corporate cooking that's important to understand is they cook different stuff than you do at home. What they're good at, in general, they don't cook that well, but things like chips, they cook incredibly well. And here's a classic food that if you make it yourself, if you've ever made French fries, you have to wash the potatoes, you have to peel the potatoes, you have to slice the potatoes, you have to fry them in a lot of oil, you have to spatter your entire stovetop, you have to clean up, and then you have this pot of oil you have to get rid of. I mean, it's really difficult, and it's a pain. They're wonderful, but it's a pain. And if you make them yourself, you'll only eat them every 6 weeks, 2 months, because it's too much work. But when you let corporations cook for you, it's so simple and so inexpensive, and they're really good, that you will have them twice a day, as many people in America do. So you see the kinds of foods you end up with are these labor-intensive foods and desserts. These special occasion foods become everyday foods when we let industry cook for us. Eat anything you want, just cook it yourself.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
Here we go now, 13 minutes before the top of the hour, Monday, August 24. Welcome to the program, and we welcome back to the program from the National Journal Hotline, Editor-in-Chief, Scott Bland. Hello, Scott. Good to talk to you again.
Good morning.
So, Scott, I'm just back from a little 10-day vacation, and I'm trying to catch up here, so maybe you can help me out. Now, before I left, the scene was as follows. Donald Trump was on top of the Republicans. Bernie Sanders was getting big crowds all across the country. Hillary Clinton was still mired in her email mess, and Joe Biden seemed to be taking the idea of running for president a little more seriously. What has changed since I left?
Everything and nothing, Bill, I think, is what's changed. I think the most interesting development over the weekend from that point of view was the story that broke about Vice President Biden suddenly leaving his home in Wilmington for meetings in Washington. And it turned out that meeting was with Senator Elizabeth Warren at the Naval Observatory, the vice presidential residence, over the weekend. And, that strikes me as a potentially big moment for Biden's presidential ambition.
Yeah. I mean, it raises all kinds of possibilities, right? I mean, the fact that he would rush down here to meet with her, right, indicates how seriously he would consider her endorsement. She didn't endorse, of course, but the fact that she would meet with him indicates how seriously she would consider his candidacy, I guess, right?
Sure, and to be fair, she's also met with Hillary Clinton,
yes,
as Clinton was planning her presidential campaign earlier this year. But it's interesting with all this Bernie Sanders momentum that's been kind of building up in polling and these big crowds over the past weeks and months, we haven't really talked much about Elizabeth Warren. And we've seen a lot of the people who were working on that draft Warren effort kind of gravitate over to Sanders' campaign, and seeing her pop back into the news is very interesting indeed. And I think it was pretty savvy on the part of the vice president to kind of talk to her and sound her out. And
absolutely,
and if he was to enter with some kind of support from her, that would be an enormous deal.
Now, Jerry Brown, Governor Jerry Brown, made a little news over the weekend, too, when on Meet the Press yesterday, asked about the Democratic race. He said he's not sure at all that Hillary Clinton will end up being the nominee. Is he right?
I think the odds are still pretty overwhelmingly in Clinton's favor, and I thought it was very funny, especially for, in Sacramento last week, Jerry Brown kind of repeatedly at a press conference refused to take a position on some tax issues going through the legislature right now that he's ultimately, but he's perfectly willing to go on Meet the Press and talk about his old adversaries, the Clintons, and their political prospects. I feel like that's just kind of a feeling that's bubbling through Democratic circles a little bit right now. Everything's a little more unsettled than they've been at any point really in the last few years in terms of looking at Clinton's prospects for the nominations. There's all the email stuff floating around, the Sanders surge, Biden taking another look at this. It's just a very unsettled moment.
Well, yeah, as Jerry said, he's been around politics long enough to know that nothing is certain and anything can happen, and it's still a long way away. On the Republican side, Scott Walker, do we finally know where he stands on the 14th Amendment? He's having a hard time getting his position together there, isn't he?
Sure, and I think we've been seeing different versions of the same problem with Walker over
several
over
issues
the last few months. And one of my colleagues said the other day, it's basically he's swinging at every pitch, basically, and it's a marked contrast to someone like, say, Marco Rubio, who's and his team is kind of touting this slow and steady approach that he's taking. Hasn't really risen in the polls yet, but is kind of just slowly positioning himself to be ready to have a moment at exactly the right time, whereas Walker has ultimately had a lot of trouble with giving different answers to different people, especially when he's given different answers to some donors in private meetings than he's been giving in public. And I think that's part of the problem he's having with his numbers receding right now. He did not have a memorable first debate. And so, I think the swinging at every pitch is a metaphor I really that makes sense to me about that.
Does it show that he's not really ready for prime time?
I think a lot of candidates have trouble in primaries and ultimately kind of straighten things out a little bit. I think the really interesting thing is that Walker has not he hasn't lost a political race since the 90s, I think. And none of these people running for president have really kind of experienced recent political trouble. And so the way they deal with being 10th in a field of 17 or something like that, or 5th or whatever, is going to be really interesting to watch, because a lot of these guys they don't have experience kind of fighting from the bottom of a pack.
No, indeed, and I do think he shows that he's still trying to find his footing, although he's still polling very well in Iowa. And with that, next week, Scott, we've got to talk about the next debate coming up, which is October 16th. But we're out of time right now, so we've got to run along. Good to have you with us again. Thanks, Scott.
Take care.
Scott Bland, Editor-in-Chief, National Journal Hotline.
This is the Bill Press Show.
What gets you into college? Good SAT scores? High GPA? Lots of extracurriculars?
Sure, but what you really need is money.
If you don't have the cash, you'll need a loan.
And we mean huge student loans, because the cost of college has risen 1,000% in the last 30 years.
This means big money for the banks that collect fees and interest.
Now, millions of young people are starting their adult lives with an average of $29,000 of loans on their backs.
Altogether, we're talking $1.2 trillion in student debt.
And more people are finding it impossible to pay them back. Welcome to the student debt crisis.
The increasing demand for higher education and cuts to state funding gave colleges a huge incentive to keep inflating prices.
I graduated about a year ago, currently in $35,000 of debt.
I am in debt about like $25,000.
I owe $23,000.
I owe over $50,000 in student loans.
38.8 million Americans owe money on a student loan. And the biggest names in banking are making huge profits off the booming student loan industry. Sallie Mae, the largest provider of private student loans, made $949 million last year.
They only give you about 6 months to look for a job. You have to start paying back the loan. It's very pressuring, especially nowadays. It's very hard to find a job.
Over half of the students graduating in 2012 could not find a decent paying job.
They either had low-wage jobs or unpaid internships or were unemployed altogether.
So you can't make the payments. You start incurring late fees, which makes the loan even harder to pay off.
And it stays with you for years, even decades.
Right now, a third of the people who started repaying their loans are delinquent or in default.
That's 13.7 million people, more than the populations of Chicago, New York, and San Francisco combined.
Worse, it's not just the borrowers who are in trouble. Many loans require co-signers.
So if the student is unable to pay, that co-signer, a father, a mother, or a grandparent, is now on the hook.
Even a grandparent's Social Security benefits can be garnished to pay the loan.
We should have an answer to this. If you get really behind in your car payment or your credit cards, you can file for bankruptcy.
But Congress has made it nearly impossible to discharge student loans through bankruptcy.
Big institutions make big profits while students try to make ends meet under crushing debt.
Is this how we want our education system to work?
The whole point of going to college is to get the career you want, but lately that's been discouraged because no one can afford school. You get a job just to pay off your student loans.
We need higher education, not higher debt.
Sign up to end the student debt crisis at higherednotdebt.org.
This is the Bill Press Show.
All right, here we go. Winding up our first hour together here. Kevin Cirilli from The Hill joins us at the top of the next hour. And then Joe Cirincione coming in from the Ploughshares Fund. Joe, with a big piece in the LA Times yesterday in support of the Iran nuclear deal. We'll talk to him about how the count is going in the United States Senate. President Obama's efforts to get approval of the Iran deal helped immeasurably yesterday by the announcement that Senator Harry Reid that he will, in fact, support the deal, not only support it, but round up the support of additional Democratic senators behind the president's proposal. We'll get into all of that in the next couple of hours coming up, so stay with us right here on The Bill Press Show. Back with you this Monday, August 24th.
This is The Bill Press Show.
I'm a Pistons fan. Their slogan was, "We come to work." That's what Detroit about. That's why they used it. It's a team thing. They won 2 championships, a team. There was no star. No mayor can come in here and be a star. It's a team thing. No governors can come in here and think you can do it by yourself. It's a team thing. You got communities. They got ideas too. The only thing wrong with Detroit, people had lost hope here. Residents, city workers, so much corruption. They lose hope. But I grew up here. I love this city. I think it can come back. I've been working for the city 24 and a half years. Within the last 10 years, we took 4 pay cuts and then an additional 10% wage cut. I've lost a home.
When you take all of the decisions out of the city of Detroit, all of us, then what do you have? Exactly what we got. A lot of problems. Every time the city seems to fall into a problem, it's always on the backs of us workers.
You wake up out of a dead sleep and you jump behind the wheel and take off driving and try to get everybody there safe, not knowing really what you're pulling up to. I'm not eligible for Social Security, so the pension is my sole salary at this point.
We've been in business here 39 years. We've seen a lot of changes in Detroit. The area was a lot of industry, a lot of city workers. It's getting very tough for the city workers. It's getting tough for us as a business people.
Response times are increasing because of the closing of companies, which takes your insurance rate through the roof. So all the things that affect us affect the citizens.
I worked for the city in different capacities for 29 years. I feel like an old jacket. They use me up and they throw me away. In my condition, nobody's gonna hire me. I'm 68 years old. Half the times, I can't get my blood pressure medicine. It's either feeding myself, blood pressure, or paying bills.
$754. By the time they take all the deductions for I have my car insurance, my house insurance, and my health insurance taken out. So the time they take all that, I'll get about $300 after they take all that out. I don't understand it. I can't see how the governor is allowing this to happen and what they're doing and they want to blame it all on the seniors. Not only the seniors, but the city workers. And we worked hard. I know I worked hard.
I've been in Detroit since 1946. I was 14 years old when I came in. I don't live large at all. I wish I could. I don't know when the last time I've been shopping. I only get $1,100, and I'm 81 years old, and I need every penny that I can get and that I do get. And I'm very, very upset about the idea of them taking away my pensions that I worked 30 years for. I think it's terrible that they talk about Detroit like they do, because Detroit has been very good to me.
I have a lot of city workers coming in with their uniforms on, Detroit Water Department, Police Department, Fire Department. I get a lot of people, the Border Patrol come in. So if I lose that customer base, I'm going to be in a position where I might have to close down. If they take away their pensions, if they start cutting jobs, it's going to cut into a large percentage of not only our business, but other businesses that are in the city of Detroit. We're here. We've been here for 26 years. We're still trying to do business in the city.
Detroiters are survivors. They tough, they adapt, but only can do so much when your politicians ahead of you and we're not on the same team. We're not gonna let Detroit be erased, bulldozed, or whatever. We're gonna fight to the bitter end. Detroit gonna survive.
Just this month, my bill was like $138.
Even at one phone call a week cost me $40 to $50 every month.
I am living on a fixed income of SSI, so this is really a great hardship. Families are being punished. When they incarcerate their children, they incarcerate the whole family.
In 2011, the Media Action Grassroots Network, Working Narratives, and Prison Legal News founded the Campaign for Prison Phone Justice, an effort to call on the FCC to address the cost of interstate phone calls. The campaign mobilized prisoners to send hundreds of letters. Advocates and families filled out postcards, met with elected officials, and signed petitions. Partnerships were formed across the political spectrum and with groups in the criminal justice, civil rights, and public interest community. The film distribution company Participant Media and director Ava DuVernay joined the fight through a social action campaign tied to the release of the feature film Middle of Nowhere. In an effort to push the FCC to act, the campaign hosted a historic rally outside of the Federal Communications Commission where for the first time, families of prisoners, elected officials, civil rights and faith leaders came together to call for an end to predatory phone rates.
We're all held captive when predatory phone companies gouge our families.
My son has been incarcerated now for over 10 years, and my husband estimates that in the time we spent over $25,000 on prison phone calls.
My hero's not yours, you probably arrested them. Your schools probably neglected them. They spawn thoughts, you probably infected them. Feed us what you feed us, you can lay us next to them. FBI call it major crimes. Babies making babies cry.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
Twins. We got twins. Yep. Check out the Panda Cam. We got twins here in Washington, D.C. It's the big news we're celebrating. Hello, everybody. Great to see you today. Monday, August 24. It's good to be back with you here on the Bill Press Show. That's me, Bill Press, off for 10 days, but glad to be back in the captain's chair today, and good to see all of you all across this great land of ours on your local Progressive Talk radio station, on the 2 radio apps, TuneIn and iHeartRadio. Good to see you on Free Speech TV and all around the globe. Good to see you on our video stream, TawkrTV, youtube.com/TawkrTV. Thank you so much for joining us on a busy Monday. Yep, President Obama back at the White House and me back here. So we got everything under control. Not only that, but we've got, I mean, you know, with a lot of political news going on, we've brought in the crack political reporter from the Hill, our good friend Kevin Cirilli off the campaign trail. Hello, Kevin.
Happy Monday, Bill. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Good to see you. Yeah, it's been a while.
It's been a heck of a summer.
I know. Yeah, you know? Things have been rolling right along.
Yeah.
And with the team here today, Peter Ogburn's got a couple of days off, but the rest of us are all here on duty. Elise Murphy writing the board.
Hey, good morning.
Going. Jamie Benson taking your calls when he is not here on other duties. Hello, Jamie.
Good morning.
And they're behind the closed door, but he's still there, very much there, and on the job and alive. Cyprian Bolding, our videographer. And Kevin, I know you've been out on the road with Donald Trump and Martin O'Malley. Have you attended any of the big Bernie Sanders rallies yet?
I have. I covered Senator Sanders when he's on Capitol Hill, but I have not been to one of these big, massive rallies. But I got to tell you, I mean, it is kind of exciting this far out in front of Election Day to see the crowds that Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders are gathering. I mean, people are really excited, I think, for this election, and it's historic. You feel that?
Yeah. So on the West Coast, I saw one. I was trying to take a vacation, but of course, politically, I'm looking around.
Bill Press doesn't know how to take a vacation.
I saw one bumper sticker in Oregon. It happened to be for Donald Trump.
Wow. Well, yesterday, I was in Philly over the weekend, and my mom and I saw a Make America Great Again hat.
Oh, I'd love
to
have.
You know that's going to be the Halloween costume du jour.
I need that hat.
I want that hat.
I want that hat. And that's just because I think it's a nice memento. I'm not saying that I support anyone. I'm just
No, I just
cool
want the hat.
Yeah.
By the way, and so then I went down to California to the Bay Area, and the Bay Area saw more bumper stickers. Of course, it's such a political hotspot. And they were, every single one of them, Bernie.
Really?
Bernie Sanders. Didn't see any for Hillary or O'Malley or anybody, Trump or nobody else. They're all Bernie. And Bernie yesterday, over the weekend, was up in New Hampshire. Here's his core message: middle class.
When Wall Street collapsed, they went begging to the middle class of this country to bail them out. Now it is their turn to help the middle class of this country.
Been right on it.
You know, I
Consistent.
cover financial services on Capitol Hill. You know, we've talked about this before, and I've watched the Senate Banking Committee, in particular, the rise of Senator Elizabeth Warren. And so we've kind of been knowing that there is this growing discontent on both sides, not just with Senator Sanders, but other folks in the more conservative wing of the party who are really still fed up with the response of the 2008 economic crisis, obviously for different reasons on both sides of the aisle. But, you know, I think that this election is really going to be about who has the passion, the candidness, the frankness to tap into the quite frankly, the disdain that still exists about this impish pace of the economic recovery.
Right. It's not just a coincidence that you see so much support on the Democratic side for Bernie Sanders and on the Republican side for Donald Trump.
Absolutely.
Not that their message is the same, but even though Bernie Sanders is a sitting senator, he still comes across as the anti-establishment. They're both the anti-establishment candidates.
Exactly, and I think
it is exciting.
When I was in Iowa having lunch with Governor O'Malley, name dropped that bill.
Oh,
you know?
boy.
Sorry, that was such the worst lead into that ever.
Yeah.
But I was in Iowa and
reminds me of the night I was having dinner with Bernie Sanders.
But I was interviewing him under a very anyway, and what he was telling me is the frustration that he feels with the DNC and Debbie Wasserman Schultz and Hillary Clinton. And he says that the Democratic establishment insiders, Bill, are tilting this whole process in favor of a coronation, if you will, for someone like Hillary Clinton. And he says that it's quote unquote a preordaining process. And so I think that, you know, when you put up a Hillary Clinton in a general election, that's you know, there's a lot of questions that she's going to have to answer.
All right. Hold that thought.
Yeah.
We'll come back to it here because we've got lots to talk about with Kevin here at the top of the hour. Joe Cirincione coming in at the half hour to talk about the latest on the Iran deal. But first,
This is
Jamie.
the Full Court Press. Just a couple of other stories on this Monday morning, on a recent episode of his HBO show Last Week Tonight, comedian John Oliver devoted a 20-minute segment to televangelists and the seed faith fundraising they're able to pull off due to their nonprofit status in front of the IRS.
I know. Yeah, stinks.
It's also known as prosperity gospel. So that would be, Bill, you or I giving money to the church with the belief that God will help us.
Oh, yeah.
We'll get something out of that.
I know.
The IRS is
It's a
now...
scam, total scam.
Big scam.
It's worked for a long time. I love that phrase, the prosperity gospel. I wrote a whole book about it.
I am excited for the Pope to come to Philadelphia, so God bless everyone. I'm a Catholic, so I'm just going to keep quiet.
There you go. The IRS, however, may finally be getting pressure to investigate these televangelists, so good on Mr. Oliver. They suspended the auditing of churches completely from 2009 to 2013 and have only looked into 3 since they started reinvestigating.
Oh, but God forbid they look at how they went after Tea Party groups, right? I mean, where's that investigation? You know?
Go after them. Go after those phony churches.
NBA legend and current Charlotte Hornets co-owner Michael Jordan got richer over the weekend thanks to a lawsuit he filed against Dominick's, a now-defunct Chicago-based grocery chain. The ad, which ran back in 2009, compared Jordan to a piece of meat and came with a $2 off coupon for steaks. The case was clearly about pride. The chain asked to settle at just $126,000. You know how much Michael Jordan made out with? $8.9 million.
Get out of here.
Was the award.
Whoa.
In the end,
I met Scottie Pippen in an airport randomly on a layover. I'm just going to add that name drop. My second name drop for the morning.
Start a tally. The good news about all this, Jordan says he'll give all the money to charity. So
he was already making so much just with the shoes.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, on top of that.
I bet I bet another judge knocks that down a little bit.
The rich get richer.
Yeah, right.
One Direction, the British boy band that teens across the globe have been obsessing over for the past 5 years, have announced they'll take a hiatus in March of next year.
Oh, I'll miss them so much.
You have to go the other direction.
They claim to just be taking time away to focus on solo projects. You may remember earlier this year, one of their band members left permanently, Zayn Malik.
And it broke Twitter.
Big uproar. Broke Twitter completely. Some fans, however, fear this may be a permanent break. If you remember back in 2002, NSYNC said they were going to take a hiatus. They never got back together. So Bill, what do you think? Is it done for One Direction?
I could care less.
How about that sounder?
I don't believe that, Bill. Bill, I do not believe that. I think you have deep-rooted passions about the One Direction breakup.
I could give a rat's ass.
You're still holding out for the NSYNC reunion, Bill.
14 minutes after the hour. So I got to ask you, what was it like to interview Donald Trump? Did you get a word in?
You know, well, I'm pretty soft-spoken. I'm just kidding.
Did he get a word in?
No, so it was really interesting because we had 15 minutes in his Trump Tower, Manhattan penthouse, sweeping view of New York City, and we ended up spending 40 minutes with him, and it was myself and Bob Cusack, and we talked about everything. I mean, this is a guy who really answers your questions. I found him to be enjoying himself. We interviewed him 3 days after the Senator John McCain scandal, if you will. He really believes that he is elevating certain issues such as immigration, Veterans Affairs, and he really does, I think, want to shake the electorate loose and kind of bring a new energy to the campaign. And I got to tell you, Bill, and this is what I think has been a little bit unfair in terms of the general coverage of his candidacy. You know this in terms of interviewing lawmakers every day on Capitol Hill. Not everyone's very fluent in the intricacies of the policy debates happening on Capitol Hill. I found him to be top of the list, if you will, in terms of understanding the issues, in terms of really getting into the details and the weeds. I'm not saying you have to agree with him or not, but he clearly knows what's going on.
But he doesn't talk about
He doesn't talk about him, though.
He doesn't talk about policy. I mean, it's hard to know. I could guess maybe where Donald Trump stands on different issues, but I don't really know because his speeches are not substantive speeches. It's more just red-hot rhetoric.
I do think on immigration, right, wrong, or indifferent, you know where he stands. I think on currency manipulation, you know where he stands. I think that also on the case of healthcare, with him supporting a single-payer system, you know where he stands. But I would just challenge people, and again, we're so far out, but I would just challenge people or remind people that this is a guy who has never been on a presidential debate stage. That was his first debate. He has never debated anyone.
Right.
And so it'll be interesting to see how he performs on October 16th. The second point that I would just make is that in a crowded field of 17, if they're a senator or a governor, they have a record, but nobody else has put out an intricate policy detail plan. Hillary Clinton certainly hasn't put out a detailed policy analysis plan. So we're still early in the cycle, but I do think that he's going to have to address the growing criticism, which is, hey, where are the details?
So everybody says, okay, he's going to fold, right? Or he's going to implode, right? He attacks John McCain. Oh, that's the end of Donald Trump.
Yep.
He talks about the rapist, right? Oh, that's the end of Donald Trump. No, that didn't happen. And then there was
anchor babies.
The anchor babies, yeah. Then that's the end of Donald Trump. It's almost like he's the Teflon candidate.
I think, again, it's that passion.
The old rules don't apply to Donald Trump.
That's a great point. No, they don't. And I think it's the passion. It's the frankness. He makes Chris Christie look soft-spoken. I mean, this is a guy who really, I think, is tapping into something. And to some extent, I think he's making some of the other candidates better. You're already seeing more personality out of Jeb Bush. You're seeing him kind of be a little bit more candid because that's what people want. They want a conversation. People nowadays, Bill, can see through. You know this. I mean, you hear it every day. They can see through the manufactured candidate, and they're sick of it. They're really, really sick of it.
You mentioned Martin O'Malley earlier. I like Martin O'Malley a lot. I think he represents kind of the future of the party. Did a good job as governor. If it weren't for Bernie Sanders, he would probably be, way up there.
O'Malley
that must be frustrating to him. Did you talk to him about that?
And I think what him and O'Malley.
And by the way, the party has really been working against him with the debates and everything else. He's right about that.
Well, and I think that it'll be interesting to see his performance at the first debate, even though they pushed back the day of it. But, I do think that he is really positioning himself for what he says is a surge. He's got the Bill de Blasio's former campaign guru organizing his efforts. And you have to remember with New York politics, Bill de Blasio surged right at the end. And so I think he's trying to position himself, if the summer of Sanders surge dissipates, that he wants to be right next in line. But again, if Joe Biden gets into the race, again, where does that leave Governor O'Malley? I think that he will get a second look. I think it could come after that first debate. I think when you hear him on the stump, he really does connect with people. And again, I think that in terms of Democrats, he's got an attractive policy record that will resonate. But does he have that electricity that someone like Senator Sanders has? It remains to be seen.
And does he have the resources to?
No, not right now.
Yeah, does he have the resources to stay in there long enough to take advantage of the opportunity when it arrives?
Yeah, and he's got the ground game. I think in Iowa, he's been in Iowa more than any other candidate on either side. And just, when you see sort of the type of people he's supporting, it's those folks who aren't sold on Hillary Clinton and also aren't sold on Senator Sanders. They don't think that he's an electable, viable alternative to Hillary Clinton. I'm not saying I agree or disagree. I'm just saying what their reasoning is. And so they feel that once the summer of Sanders dissipates, which no indication in the polls say that it's going to, that he would get a second look.
Okay. And Jerry Brown yesterday on Meet the Press, Governor Jerry Brown from California, was asked about the Hillary Clinton candidacy, and he said, among other things, that he's not sure today that Hillary Clinton will be the nominee. Is he right?
I don't. I think with Hillary Clinton, what you're seeing is this scandal with the emails. It's a real scandal that she has got to answer these questions. And I think that it was really, quite telling to see her press conference where she, threw her hands up and said, wiping the server clean and all of that. I think what it comes down to is that you're seeing the vulnerabilities of her candidacy. And I think that, look, she's got a ton of money and she's clearly got a strong lead in the polls. She's still the front runner. So, you'd rather be on top than not number one. But I do think that this is not going away. I think in October, when we talk again and she's going to be testifying on Capitol Hill, there's going to be even more questions. So this is not going away. And I think, if someone like a Joe Biden gets in the race, how does that play out? I think she's okay. In Clinton world and the Democratic strategists, I think they think she's okay for the primary right now. It's when you get into a general and you contrast her with a Republican, how does that trustworthiness, honesty factor shape up? Still too early to tell, though.
Right. And we got the second Republican debate coming up it's going
to be fun.
Pretty soon, right? September 13? No, 16th. September 16th. Right, yeah. Kevin Cirilli here with us from the Hill, just off the road with Donald Trump, Martin O'Malley, and others. Your calls welcome at 866-55-PRESS. We'll be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
When I started learning about nutrition, about which, by the way, much less is known than you might think, I learned that what mattered most about one's health was not necessarily the nutrients, good or bad, that you were consuming or staying away from, or even the calorie counts. But what predicted a healthy diet more than anything else is the fact that it was being cooked by a human being and not a corporation. Corporations cook very differently than people do. They use vast amounts of salt, fat, and sugar, much more than you would ever use in your own cooking. And the reason they do that is those are three incredibly attractive and incredibly cheap ingredients. And when they're layered properly, as in a chip or pastries and forms of junk food, they're incredibly addictive. They really press our buttons. They activate our dopamine network, our cravings. And in fact, people in the industry, they don't talk about addiction in the food industry, even though they traffic in addiction. They talk about craveability. It's the same thing. And snackability is another term they use, which is a lovely word. And then the last point about corporate cooking that's important to understand is they cook different stuff than you do at home. What they're good at, in general, they don't cook that well, but things like chips, they cook incredibly well. And here's a classic food that if you make it yourself, if you've ever made French fries, you have to wash the potatoes, you have to peel the potatoes, you have to slice the potatoes, you have to fry them in a lot of oil, you have to spatter your entire stovetop, you have to clean up, and then you have this pot of oil you have to get rid of. I mean, it's really difficult, and it's a pain. They're wonderful, but it's a pain. And if you make them yourself, you'll only eat them every 6 weeks, 2 months, because it's too much work. But when you let corporations cook for you, it's so simple and so inexpensive, and they're really good, that you will have them twice a day, as many people in America do. So you see the kinds of foods you end up with are these labor-intensive foods and desserts. These special occasion foods become everyday foods when we let industry cook for us. Eat anything you want, just cook it yourself.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC. Or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Here we go, 26 minutes after the hour, jumping to the Iran nuclear deal with Joe Cirincione at the half hour right now. Kevin Cirilli from The Hill, thehill.com. It's got to be a good paper because I write a column for The Hill, so there you go. Kevin, on the Republican side, are we going to see the same lineup in the second debate that we saw in the first one?
Not if Carly Fiorina can help it. I think that she's really surged. She's the former Hewlett-Packard CEO, a very compelling story from secretary to CEO.
But guess me, it was not a great job as CEO.
Well, that's up for debate. Lost? That's up for debate because it was really the institutionalized folks, the HP institution, if you will, that really kind of had a boardroom brawl against her. But, they hacked her phone after. People forget about that. This HP hacked her phone and was monitoring her phone calls, they had Capitol Hill hearings on this. But, so I think she's positioned for a surge. She won the undercard debate, but CNN is weighing the polls from before the first presidential debate when she was hovering at about 1%. So now she's middle of the pack, but she's being weighed down by polls before the first debate. So she's really hitting the campaign trail hard, but she's one to watch.
But if she comes up, then who goes down?
That's a great question, and I think that's going to be interesting to see. Someone maybe I don't want to predict who, but I mean you've got a couple of folks who are hovering there.
Come on,
Senator Rand Paul hasn't really surged. Governor Chris Christie, there's a couple.
One of them might drop off.
Maybe, but I'm not sure yet.
Is CNN going to have two debates like Fox
Yeah, they
did?
will have two, but it's that main stage debate that matters the most.
So they'll have the kiddies table again?
But Carly Fiorina proved, Bill, that if you win that, you get so much free press.
Yeah. No, she did. We'll be watching that with you. Keep up the good work. Come back and see us again soon.
Thanks, Bill. Have a good one.
Cirilli from The Hill.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Officer, were you the one who arrested me? Gonna shake my hand? So I got invited to host a vigil called Carry the Names. And that's what they were doing, carrying the names of the people who were victims of deadly police force. Michael Brown, Eric Garner, Akai Gurley. I got a motion from Dragonfly from Stop Shopping Choir, and I started preaching. preached up a storm as best I could, but about a minute and a half into my sermon, the place was flooded with police, Homeland Security, National Guard, state troopers, and I was pushed over and handcuffed so fast, down in the jail, down in the basement. Before you know it, I was out the door, put in prison overnight. The next morning, I'm in court. The same thing happens. I'm just rushed out of there. Then our lawyer, Wiley Steckler, gives me this iPhone. And there, in black and white, in the Gothamist, a popular paper, is this charge by Adam Lisberg, the MTA law enforcement spokesperson for this grand place. His quote is that I, Reverend Billy, physically attacked a police officer. Unbelievable. The feeling of being robbed of my work and life and identity, just the fiction. I did not touch anybody. I did not look. I know how to do this. I'm trained in nonviolence. I did not do anything. It was right here. It was right here. It happened right here. I was simply arrested while I was speaking and taken away, and that's it. The cold feeling in my city, the city that I love, that city spokespersons whose salary I pay for with my taxes, that they would say this. I could just feel the rending apart of the community, that we are not that close. We're not. They are willing to say this, and they think that they can just say anything about anybody and get away with it. So we have something in the Church of Stop Shopping called radical forgiveness. Amen?
Cops and bankers love their children.
I forgive the police.
We gotta love them too. Cops and bankers love their mothers.
But I'll stay radical.
Mothers love their brothers. We gotta love them too.
But we'll wake up every morning forgiving each other, reaching out, touching, telling stories, having humor, being in a community together, sharing our children, sharing the streets, sharing the climate, being in the city together. But forgiving each other, being grateful to each other, helping each other out, living together, living together.
I got a daughter just turned 4. What do we do in the superstore? What do we do with the blood and the gore? The water's rising through our door. Love our children too. Love our children too.
Amen. Earth-alleluia.
He's not running for president, but he will shake hands and kiss babies. It's the Bill Press Show, your progressive headquarters for the 2016 election.
Wait a minute. Who said I'm not running for president? There's still time, right?
Run, Bill, run!
If Joe Biden hasn't decided yet, that's the same place I am right now. I'm seriously considering. In fact, I'm meeting with Elizabeth Warren later today. Just kidding. 33 minutes after the hour. Hello, everybody. It's the Bill Press Show. Back from vacation, brought to you today by the American Federation of Government Employees. The good men and women of the AFGE under President J. David Cox, they're proud to work for us every day, and we thank them for their good work. You can find out more about it at their website, afge.com. Those of you lucky enough to read the LA Times yesterday saw that Joe Cirincione, our good friend from the Ploughshares Fund, is there in the LA Times with a big paper, very important question. What happens if the Senate were to reject the Iran nuclear deal? God forbid. Joe here in studio with us this morning to tell us all about it. Joe, good to see you.
Great to be back.
It's you, President Obama, and I, all back today from vacation.
We are.
This is a good sign.
Yeah, but the president and I have to wear suits. How come you wear this beautiful purple polo shirt? You got the best job.
I don't give a damn. Nice to see you, Joe. Thank you.
Nice to see you.
So Harry Reid yesterday
Yes.
announcing his full unpledged support, what's all-out support.
All
for the
out.
Iran
Promise to
nuclear
do
deal,
everything
and
he can.
promises to line up as many votes as he can. This is good. This is a big deal. Isn't it?
It is a big deal. This wasn't a given. Harry Reid. He was under a lot of pressure, particularly from big donors, not to back the deal, and he did back the deal. And as much as Charles Schumer, who came out against the deal 10 days ago, wants to be Democratic leader, Harry Reid still is for a good year. So when he says he's going to do all he can, he's going to do all he can. He's got the support of Dick Durbin, his currently second in command, who's been rallying the forces around this deal.
Among other Democrats who have announced their support of the deal, Congressman Sam Farr from California, my good friend from Monterey Carmel, and when I saw that he supported it, I sent him an email saying, good move, good decision, Sam. And he emailed me back and he said, for me, this was, he said, not a tough choice. It's the first, he's been in Congress for over 20 years.
Yes.
He said it's the first time he has ever had an opportunity to vote for peace.
Yes, I saw that statement.
Yeah, that everything else has been, anti-war or this or for war. It's all about war. He said this is the first time he's had an opportunity to stand up and say yes on diplomacy, yes for peace.
Yes, and a lot of members are seeing it that way, and the president made this point in his American University address almost 2 weeks ago now. I was there at the address where he talked about we have a chance to resolve this major conflict through diplomacy, through negotiations, without war. We'd be foolish to reject this chance. And you see most national security establishment figures like Brent Scowcroft just a couple of days ago in the Washington Post saying he called this an epical moment, and urged Congress not to squander this historic opportunity.
Now, but we still hear these questions, Joe. The campaign against this.
Oh, yeah.
The ads on television, we see them all the time.
Yes.
Is there any validity? I understand that people can have differences of opinions. God knows I've been around politics long enough, right? But it seems to me like there's just a bunch of lies about this.
This is a campaign utterly lacking in any factual basis.
Campaign against
the deal. It is one manufactured charge after another, and you can tell this by the complete absence of any true nuclear policy, nuclear nonproliferation experts. I can't name one who's come out against this deal. There are a couple with concerns, and there are concerns. In every agreement, you'd like to have this nut tightened a little better and this screw, pushed down a little more. But overall, overwhelming consensus in the nuclear policy world that this is not just a good deal, a great deal. Stops Iran from getting a bomb, stops a new Iran war. And the arguments against it are very much like the Sarah Palin death panel arguments, completely fabricated, or as I write in Defense One last week, like the swift boating of John Kerry 11 years ago, going right at the major strengths of the agreement and making up lies about them, but just incessantly hammering away with a very well-funded campaign.
So they're saying the exact opposite of what the reality is. Right?
Yes.
Okay. And let's take a few of them.
Yeah.
The president says, this makes it possible for Iran to get a nuclear weapon.
Exactly the opposite. This blocks Iran from getting a bomb for at least 15 years, and most experts would say it's extremely remote for the next generation, for 25 years, that Iran will get a bomb. You can't ask any more of an agreement.
And this says, they say, Oh, this will make it easy for them to cheat because we have to wait 24 days before we can inspect any site.
An unprecedented inspection regime. I've been doing nonproliferation for 30 years. I've never seen an inspection regime like this. It's 24/7 inspections at all declared facilities. There's no waiting at all. It's instantaneous, state-of-the-art technology monitoring all the sites. For the few sites where you might suspect something's going on that you don't have inspectors at, a process has been set up to get access to those sites. The 24 days is the longest it will take to get access. In the non-proliferation world, that is the blink of an eye. You sometimes argue for years to get into sites. They've been trying to get into Parchin, one of these suspect sites in Iran, for over 10 years, just to give you an example. So 24 days is unprecedented. It's the shortest amount of time you can imagine.
They also say, of course, that they're going to, Iran, we take the sanctions off, Iran's going to get all this money, and with all that money, they're going to be funding terrorist attacks around the world against Israel and against the United States.
Two quick points. Any conceivable deal involves sanctions relief. The sanctions were put on to get Iran to make a deal. They make a deal, you have to give them sanctions relief. So by making this argument, you're essentially saying, I don't want any deal. I never want to allow them sanctions relief. Number two, they keep using this lie of $150 billion. You'll see it over and over again, even though the Secretary of the Treasury testified almost a month ago that at most it's going to be $50 billion. The Iranians themselves think it's $30 billion. Will some go to fund the Revolutionary Guard? Yes, but it's minor compared to the funding that they've been getting all these years with sanctions already in place.
And they also say, some of the critics say, well, what we ought to do instead, right, is just keep the sanctions on, and all of our partners will do the same thing.
This is really the big lie. And you see it in the ads. The ads that you're seeing, that you're talking about. By the way, pro-deal ads are now coming on TV.
I saw one this morning, by the way, which was very good.
Americans United for Change.
Yes.
They've started a big campaign, and you'll see them from others. Some of our grantees at the Ploughshares Fund are now putting ads up. But they're still going to be outspent 10 to 1, 5 to 1, but you'll see them now. This big lie is that, no, the choice isn't between this deal or war. There's a better deal, what we call the unicorn option. We can go, this beautiful, unreal option that's out there. Couldn't be further from the truth. Our European allies have already told us that it's this deal or nothing. That if the U.S. rejects this deal, it will be impossible to put on new sanctions. That even our closest allies, the conservative governments of the United Kingdom and Germany and France, are going to walk away from us. They're going to start doing business with Iran. You'll see the sanctions regime wither. You kill this deal, you're killing any chance of any deal with Iran.
Why does Prime Minister Netanyahu... why is he is leading the fight against this?
Yeah.
Why?
He's had a thing about Iran ever since he started his political career. He used to call himself Mr. Iran, and he's been warning for decades now that Iran was a few years away from a bomb.
I remember when he gave that address to the UN General Assembly, and he had the bomb, and he colored in the bomb, and the whole. I mean, he's been beating this drum for a long time.
So this was in 2012, and he warned that Iran was a few weeks from a bomb. Well, guess what? The interim deal, not this deal, the interim deal that we got 2 years ago took care of that problem. It drained that bomb of all the uranium stockpile that Netanyahu warned about. And this deal, this prevents that bomb coming for at least 15 years, probably 25 years. You think he'd be pleased, but he's not. And the reason has not so much to do with Iran's nuclear capability as his view of Iran's role in the world, its relative role in the region, his desire to securitize, this is my word, securitize all political discussions so that there's these never-ending threats against Israel, and he's the only thing standing between Israel, the Israeli population, and the new Holocaust. And it's worked for him politically. You have to give him credit. Yeah. However untrue these arguments are, they've benefited him politically.
If George W. Bush were in the White House today, and he started these, we have to remember, he began these negotiations. If he came to the Congress with this same deal, would every Republican oppose it the way they are today?
We would have already renamed an airport for him. This would have been considered a major diplomatic triumph, the result of peace through
Nuclear
strength.
peace prize.
That
whatever.
the strength is built up, the military force option has been there, it's been referenced for over 10 years, all options on the table, that kind of thing. The sanctions regime, an unprecedented sanction regime. We united the world around our sanctions, and you got to give Bush credit. Like you say, he started this.
Right.
Obama just finished it, made it as strong as it is, and now the Iranians are essentially capitulating to our demands, dismantling the great part of their nuclear
So you would
program,
agree-
putting in an icebox for 20, 25 years.
You would agree that a good part of the Republican opposition to this deal, unanimous Republican opposition, I don't know one Republican yet.
There is not one
for it.
Republican senator for it.
But
We'll
a
probably
good
pick up
part
some
of it is-
Republican House members.
A good part of it is based on just the fact that this has Barack Obama's name on it.
Absolutely. It's like Obamacare. You're not going to get a single Republican Senate vote for this. It's politics. They do not want to give the Democratic president a major foreign policy victory, even if that would threaten U.S. national security interests.
Don't you think world peace is worth maybe rising above politics?
You used to say that politics ended at the water's edge. I would say they begin at the water's edge these days.
Joe Cirincione here from the Ploughshares Fund. Nobody knows this deal better inside and out. That's why he so strongly supports it. Your chance to weigh in at 866-55-PRESS.
This is the Bill Press Show.
This is why you took a second job. Why you taught yourself how to fix the plumbing. Why you'll do whatever it takes to keep your home. And that is why we want to help. We are making home affordable, a free government resource that can make paying the mortgage easier. Call 888-995-HOPE today.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course.
Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
Ploughshares Fund, the leaders in terms of nuclear proliferation in the world, I think, and certainly their support for the Iran nuclear deal and Joe's support shows that it's, I mean, you put the stamp of approval on it, Joe, it means something.
Well, thank you very much. And I'm not the only one. There was just a letter from 75 leading national nuclear nonproliferation experts, all endorsing this deal without reservation.
And President Obama, with a very powerful letter to Senate Democrats just last week as well.
Yeah, assuring them that this is not this is not a peace treaty with Iran. As much as it ends the possibility of war, there'll be plenty of other issues we'll be pressing Iran on, including getting the American prisoners out and ending Iran's support for terrorist activities.
Now, one argument that I hear, and this is one that Chuck Schumer made, which I thought was BS, but at any rate, that, all right, well, maybe it's okay for 10 years, but boy, at the end of 10 years, or 15 years, whatever it is, they'll be, gung-ho into a nuclear bomb. We're making it easy for them in 15 years to go.
Right. This is part of the big lie technique that it paves the way for Iran. First of all, most arms control treaties have an expiration date. The very first treaty that Nixon negotiated with the Soviet Union only lasted for 5 years. Reagan's treaties would last for 10 years, 15 years. So this is a 25-year treaty. Some of the provisions expire after 15 years. It's true, it doesn't solve the problem forever, but in national security terms, 25 years is an eternity. It's an entire generation where this program is going to be essentially frozen.
But what makes it... So why are people, first of all, how do we know what's going to happen 15 years from now on anything, right?
Yeah. Or who's going to make the postseason in baseball, for example?
But why does it mean that it's going to be easier in 15 years if they haven't been able to do anything for 15 years, and if they have to give up their centrifuges and all of that uranium for 15 years, won't it be harder in 15 years?
Well, to be fair, there's the core of an argument here. So what this means is, in about 15 years, the restrictions most of the restrictions will be lifted from their centrifuge and their uranium stockpiles. So at that point, they could start installing brand new centrifuges and build up their uranium stockpile. They could start enriching uranium. That is true. That doesn't mean they'll be allowed to build a bomb. This deal prohibits Iran from building a bomb forever. Prohibits all kinds of specific weapons-related research. And the inspection regime, the unprecedented inspection regime, lasts for 25 years. So should they decide that they want to install these machines and use them for making bombs, not fuel, we'd know it immediately. We'd be no worse off than we are now. All options on the table.
Here's Mary from out in Ouray, Colorado, with an important question for Joe. Hi, Mary.
Hi. I keep hearing about Obama's made a secret deal that they're going to allow Iranian inspectors to do some of the inspecting. I can't believe that would be true.
Well, let's find out. Iranian inspectors? Joe.
Again, this is they've got a germ of truth to it, and this is the techniques the opponents are using. So this is standard International Atomic Agency an International Atomic Energy Agency practice. They conclude what's called confidential agreements with the individual parties. They have one with us over the inspections of U.S. nuclear reactors. They don't share that with other countries. So if Iran asks to see the agreement they have with the U.S., they say, no, you can't see it. It's the same thing. So the IAEA does have a confidential agreement with Iran about the inspection procedures. The U.S. has been briefed on it. We are completely comfortable with this, but we don't actually see the agreement. So that is the so-called secret deal. So in this process, the Iranians are suspect about the IAEA. They think it's too close to us. Yeah. And so they want to be able to make sure that the environmental samples aren't tampered with. So what will happen is the IAEA inspectors, the international inspectors, will go in to Iranian nuclear sites, not the the suspect sites where we think some secret activity might have gone on, and the Iranians in front of the inspectors will take swipes. You know, every once in a while you go through the line at the airport and you get swiped. It's like that. And these swipes will be able to pick up any traces of radioactive material. Excuse me. They will then hand them over to the inspectors when they will be brought to IAEA labs and tested. That's what they mean by the Iranians being able to take their own samples. They will physically take them, but under the direct supervision of the IAEA. The head of the agency has tried to clarify this, has briefed Congress on this, but I got to tell you, a lot of the members of Congress, they don't want clarification. They just want a talking point.
They don't want the truth.
They don't want the truth.
No.
They're twisting everything to kill this deal, and there'll be more to come. So get ready for a rocky 3 weeks.
But in the end, just a yes or no, we're going to get this deal?
We are going to get this deal. We're going to make history.
All right. Joe, you're part of history. And thank you for coming in, being part of history right here on the Bill Press Show. Ploughshares.org, Ploughshares shares.org. Thanks, Joe. We'll be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
All right, as always, we got a big third hour coming up, but you know the drill. You have to wait around on Free Speech TV until 5 p.m. Eastern, 4 Central, 2 Pacific to watch this third hour of the Bill Press Show, but you can watch it right away on our video stream, TawkrTV, youtube.com/Tawker, TAWKR-TV. What about those anchor babies? Is that really a racist slur? And what does it all mean? We'll get into that with Karl Frisch as a friend of Bill and Elise Foley from Huffington Post. All in the next hour. Stay with us for hour number 3.
A few years ago, plastic bag waste in our city came to a tipping point. It was clear we had a bag problem. My department was tasked to reduce plastic bag consumption. We needed to come up with ways to change human behavior. So we asked ourselves, should I get back? What do people really hate?
Yep.
Getting punched in the stomach. Preliminary studies showed that the consequences weren't severe enough to warrant behavioral change.
Actually, can I get that double bagged?
So we thought, what do people hate more than getting punched in the stomach? Kissing Helga.
Hey, big boy.
People didn't find her so offensive after all, so we had to get creative.
How many bags? Okay, now, pour this ice water down your pants.
We tried everything.
Eat the threat. Defuse this bomb.
Even fighting your clone. After blowing through millions of dollars of government funds on research, I came up with a brilliant idea.
Why don't we just charge 5 cents per bag?
That's a stupid idea.
Would you like a bag?
Yes.
5 cents a bag.
5 cents? 5 cents? Do I still have the option of getting punched?
Honestly, I don't know how everyone else missed it.
Why don't you just get a reusable bag?
This is the Bill Press Show.
Karl Frisch joins us at the top of the next hour. For the next hour, as a friend of Bill, President Obama and the Vice President get their daily briefing today. Then they have lunch together at the White House. Wonder if they'll be talking about that little meeting with Elizabeth Warren. And then the President, about 3 o'clock this afternoon, takes off for Las Vegas, Nevada, where he will be addressing a clean energy summit out at the Mandalay Bay Resort right there in downtown on the Strip in Las Vegas. Spending the night in Las Vegas tomorrow night. But what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. Remember,
this is the Bill Press Show.
The hardest moments for me is when I'm laying awake in the middle of the night and I'm thinking about all the times I made a pitcher of Kool-Aid with the water, or I boiled a pot of corn or potatoes with the water. Those thoughts just stick with me in the middle of the night, and I feel horrible as a mom that I didn't know that something was wrong, but how could I have known? There's no way I would have known.
The spill at Dan River happened when a drainage pipe that ran underneath an ash basin and dam collapsed, sucking out 6 decades of waste and spewing gunk directly into the river.
My husband and I just kind of looked at each other like, should we be concerned? We live right next to an ash pond, and this was coal ash spilling into the Dan River, and we learned at that point all of the toxins that were included in coal ash.
A situation like Dan River, where there was a catastrophic disaster, gets people's attention, but the fact is that these coal ash pits have been leaking and poisoning people's groundwater and the state's surface waters for decades. Coal ash is the residue left behind after coal is burned in a coal-fired power plant. A large coal-fired power plant can burn 10 million tons of coal a year. When the organic matter in the coal is burned away, what's left behind are these trace minerals, things like arsenic, lead, mercury, selenium, and chromium. And these are highly concentrated. The coal ash can have concentrations of these contaminants that are 10 to 100 times greater than the level in the coals themselves.
Coal ash pond number 1 is right behind my house, literally pretty much in my backyard. We were approached by a neighbor who was wanting to have their well tested, and we decided that maybe we should have ours tested as well. They found hexavalent chromium at 4.5 parts per billion.
So in talking to the residents, we have discovered anecdotal evidence of an extraordinary number of cancers for this fairly small community.
Some of us in the community got together. We started kind of talking about all the cancer that we've seen in some of our family friends in this community. I think we had somewhere in the neighborhood of around 70 names. So we had some help from our river keepers putting a map together, and it was a little shocking to see it. You know, I still have a hard time looking at it.
Technically, EPA has not regulated coal ash as a hazardous waste, but it is undeniable that coal ash contains many, many hazardous substances that are hazardous, in fact, to people and the environment. And the only reason they have not been regulated as such is because of intense lobbying efforts by the coal industry and its allies.
A lot of these chemicals are simple elements, but when you find them at the levels that they exist in around coal ash ponds, then you're starting to talk about cancer, brain tumors, you're talking about birth defects, developmental problems, neurotoxicity.
we began to look at legal options, cases that we could bring in court to protect communities and their citizens from these toxic leaking time bombs. In 2002, North Carolina enacted a public financing mechanism for judicial elections. This kept private money out of judicial elections.
The repeal of the public financing program in judicial elections in North Carolina creates a dangerous precedent for all, and it gives corporate polluters and other special interests the opportunity to elect the judges that they want. And this is important for us all. Everyone should care about this, because when you think about the fact that the state and the federal government have basically abdicated their responsibility to regulate these issues, the state courts are the last stopgap.
I think this is no longer a problem that's going to go under the radar. It has been exposed, and I am confident that we will ultimately, with the facts, win out and ensure that we have protected waterways.
And so this is something that we all should care about. If we're worried about the water we drink and the air we breathe, we have to be concerned about money in judicial elections.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds. At highway speeds, that's enough time to travel the length of a football field. Stop the texts, stop the wrecks.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
It's twins. Did you hear the news? Yeah, check the Panda Cam. We got twin baby pandas here, panda cubs in Washington, D.C. Who says it's not a good week? Good morning, everybody. It's Monday, August 24. Great to see you today. Thank you for joining us. I am back from a little vacation on the West Coast, and good to be back here in the captain's chair today. Thanks to all of you for joining us, and thanks to our good friends Peter Ogburn and Clinton Yates and Igor Volsky and Jimmy Williams, and I'm forgetting Charles Ellison, all for filling in last week. How exciting. We're back together again with a lot to talk about today, and to help us through the news of the day, we welcome back a good friend as a friend of Bill today, Karl Frisch, now wearing the new hat of Executive Director of Allied Progress. He'll tell us all about that. Hello, Karl. Good to see you.
Good morning, Bill.
Enjoying your summer?
So far, so good.
I mean, that's right.
It's almost over, thankfully. It's been a little warm.
But it's not over yet.
No, it's not.
So we have a couple more weeks of summer.
That's right.
You can count on Congress. They will stretch the summer out as long as
and do absolutely nothing.
Exactly. Lots going on here and lots to talk about. So it's good to be with you on your local progressive talk radio station out there in Radioland. Good to be with you on Free Speech TV. Thanks for watching, and worldwide on our video stream, youtube.com/TawkrTV, TAWKRTV. This being the summer, we can't keep the team together no matter how hard we try. We're still not all together this week, but Elise Murphy is also back from vacation, as am I.
Hey, Bill.
Now it's Peter Ogburn's turn to take a couple of days off. Jamie Benson here. He had his vacation earlier, back here to take your calls and to deliver other good news for us. Jamie, good to see you.
Good morning.
With Cyprian Bolding lurking in the background here, but so important because he keeps us looking good on Free Speech TV. And and TawkrTV. You know, Jimmy Fallon, Karl, did you know Donald Trump was running for president?
I heard about it.
You heard maybe a little thing about
it? I think over the weekend there was the largest gathering of white folks and something really bad happened in Alabama.
Yeah, right. God, I'm telling you. 20,000.
Same signs.
Yeah.
Same motivations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Different crowd.
George Wallace?
Yeah.
Now, 20,000 people out for Donald Trump. But now there was also, as Jimmy Fallon pointed out, some word that he might actually consider, not just a third party, but consider running for vice president. Really? Here's Jimmy Fallon.
Trump also said he wouldn't run as anyone's vice president if he loses the nomination,
right.
Which is good. I mean, can you imagine a vice president just says weird random stuff whenever he wants?
I promise you, the president has a big stick.
Oh, man.
You could do lots with that.
Joe Biden is a dummy. He's not even smart. Donald Trump, when he says anything bad about somebody, he reverts to being a third grader. His vocabulary immediately shrinks to 4 words.
Isn't it?
It's like, he's a dummy. He's not a smart person. In fact, I would question his intelligence, the dummy.
My sister was telling me last night, she said, for her kids and her grandkids, they were never allowed to call anybody stupid.
Yeah.
And that's Donald Trump's favorite word, right?
Well, it's easy to call people stupid your entire life when your entire life was handed to you by your rich father.
Nobody points that out, by the way.
No. And, his father made a living building housing for people that, are being priced out of housing now thanks to people like Donald Trump.
Right.
Middle-income housing.
I thought it was funny in that debate when they were all saying, my father was a bartender. My father was a mailman. My father was an immigrant. My father was this. I was waiting for Donald Trump to say, my father
was a multi-millionaire housing mogul.
And that's why I am. Yeah, right, exactly.
You won't hear that kind of modesty coming from Donald Trump.
I don't think so.
I don't even think he's worth $10 billion. I mean, until he swears to it.
No. He's right. He'd swear to it, too.
I don't doubt that he's a wealthy man. No. But like everything, I think it's overblown.
Well, what gets me is they say, I think the Wall Street Journal said, he's not worth $10 billion. He's only worth $4.5 billion. As if that's chump change.
Right. No, yeah.
I'd settle
it's
for it.
Trump change.
That's what it is. 11 minutes after the hour. Lots of fun here with Karl Frisch and the news of the day. Your call's welcome at 866-55-PRESS. But first...
This is the Full Court Press. Just a couple of other stories for you on this Monday morning. Hey, Bill, do you remember the hoverboards from the Back to the Future films? The skateboards-looking thing?
Yeah,
it's a toy.
Yes,
right. They're finally a reality now. There's a lot of famous celebrities using them because, they cost a lot of money. The rapper Wiz Khalifa, best known for his hit song Black and Yellow, was riding his hoverboard through LAX yesterday, or on Saturday. Police asked him to stop. He did not, and was arrested for resisting arrest.
Was Biff one of the officers?
It should have been.
My first date with a girl was to the sequel to Back to the Future in 6th grade. So you know how things turned out in the future.
So they may have allowed you to ride them in that film.
Remember that?
Not at LAX. Khalifa tweeted footage of the incident with the caption, quote, all because I didn't want to ditch the technology everyone will be using in the next 6 months.
But why at LAX?
He wanted to get around quicker.
Well, you do have to.
Of all the places in Los Angeles to hang out, as somebody who grew up in Los Angeles, I can't think of any place better than LAX.
6 years ago, the sister of Sam Haynes, a 26-year-old construction worker from Ohio, was paralyzed following a collision with a drugged-up driver. On Friday, he noticed a car swerving on the highway, so he jumped into action. He began filming that driver that was swerving all over the place and yelled at her to pull over. Shortly after the driver was pulled over, she passed out. She was later charged with driving under the influence and was likely high on heroin or meth. Sam said it was, quote, common sense to get that woman off the road. So good for Sam Haynes in Ohio.
Yeah, but I wish more people would do that.
I know, yeah. In the music world, they often call it the weed carrier. But when drugs aren't directly involved, with Snoop or Willie Nelson, when drugs aren't directly involved, it's known simply as the fall guy. NFL Hall of Famer and ESPN commentator Chris Carter told NFL rookies at a 2014 event that they better have one. The video just resurfaced last week. It was on NFL.com after a former 49ers player, who had to retire because of concussions, by the way, revealed this was common advice for rookies. You better have a fall guy. Carter said, if you're going to have a crew, one of them fools got to know he's going to jail. We'll get him out. So, taking a lot of heat this morning for being so forward with saying, you guys better make sure you have somebody that's going to take the fall.
Good Lord. I
You
mean,
ever had a fall
Are you
guy, Bill?
surprised, Bill? This is
this is the NFL.
Yeah.
I should not be surprised at anything.
You'll do a
It's
lot of
just-
stupid things when you beat your head against, another head.
I guess, yeah, that's it. I mean, I just hearing that, I'm not surprised.
Brain damaged advice.
Any good news coming out of the NFL ever? No, at all. All right, Jamie, thank you. Karl, Frisch, I want to ask you a little bit about 2016 before we get into Allied progress. Here we are in 2015. The Republican Party is still running on an anti-gay platform.
Anti-gay, anti-immigrant, anti-woman. It's as if they took the autopsy that they did after the 2008 election to figure out why they lost and decided to double down. So it's not surprising that they would be this way. The Republican
What do you
base.
think by this time there'd be some opposition within the Republican Party, or some people who would stand up and say, hey, we really got to kind of reach out?
They can't. I mean, if they did that during the primary, that person would not win. Look at John Huntsman.
Yeah.
You cannot be different on these issues and expect to do well in a Republican primary. Look at Donald Trump. Everybody knows that he's just changing his positions on a whim to fit the party. And he's doing that because he wouldn't have a chance in hell of winning the nomination if he was pro-gay rights and pro-immigrant and in favor of women's reproductive
There were
health.
17 candidates on the stage in the two debates that Fox News held. Not one of the 17 supports marriage equality.
No. The base doesn't support women's equality or LGBT
Marriage equality or women's equality.
They don't
right.
support equality in general. There's a serious lacking of something called empathy, and I've been calling it the empathy gap in the Republican Party. You cannot show an affection for or a soft spot for anybody who might be victimized in our culture if you want to run as a Republican Party candidate. If any one of them was capable of showing empathy, they might be, they might have a respectable chance at winning the presidency. But they don't have empathy. And that's something that I developed after I switched parties, was a sense of empathy. Imagine my surprise. But until you can look at a group of people that's been slighted by our culture or our government and empathize with their place in life, you can't develop policies that help those people. So instead, it's always self-centered egotism in their politics. Look at the Republican field. It's all about my money. It's all about leave me alone. It's all about get out of my country.
Yeah.
It's all selfish.
On the Democratic side, the buzz today in Washington, news that Joe Biden made a last-minute, unannounced trip, rushed back to Washington, D.C. last week to meet with Elizabeth Warren.
Uh-huh.
What's that mean?
I don't know what it means. I don't think Biden's going to run.
You don't?
No. I think if he was going to run, he would need somebody like Elizabeth Warren to help him raise money on the internet. But all the big dollar donors, for the most part, are tied up. So he would need something to compete with Bernie and Clinton in terms of cash. And I think only Elizabeth Warren could provide that for him. But she has no interest, as far as I can tell, in being president, or certainly not vice president. I think if she looked at the presidency and decided, I can have a much bigger impact in the Senate, she couldn't possibly look at the VP slot and think, that's my job, even if Biden is saying he's only going to serve one term.
Let's assume, which I do, believe firmly, that Hillary Clinton did nothing illegal with her emails.
She didn't do anything unethical either.
Does the email controversy, is that a serious problem? Could it derail her candidacy?
I don't think so. I mean, we're still months out from any elections being held.
She's having a hard time shaking it, though.
Well, that's because of the media, but she's always had a hard time shaking things because the media latches onto phony scandals and they don't let them go. Look at how long we had to deal with Whitewater, only to be told by 3 Republican-appointed inspectors general that there was no there. How many fake scandals do we have to deal with? I mean, anybody who believes for a second that this is any different than what Barack Obama has had to go through is not living in reality. It's the same thing that the Clintons had to go through before Barack Obama. This is what Republican playbook is today. It's grind the government to a halt and focus on faux scandals in a hope of keeping that president or that presidential candidate of doing anything successful.
How do you explain the Bernie Sanders phenomenon? The Bernie Sanders.
I work for Howard Dean. I get it.
What is? Oh, good. Well,
there's a
what does it say?
There's a significant portion of the party that is rightfully idealistic on a number of important issues. I don't think it says anything bad about our party that we don't fall in line lockstep. But I worked for Howard Dean. I know what it's like to work for somebody who has a not as good of a chance of winning the Democratic nomination as the front runner, because I think it pushes the party in the right direction. And look what happened because of Howard Dean. I mean, he didn't win, but he became the Democratic Party chairman, and his 50-state strategy eventually helped Barack Obama become president. So I think a lot of good can come out of it.
And could come out of the Bernie Sanders phenomenon as well.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to be the nominee.
Bernie, can Bernie win where Howard Dean was unable to win votes?
I think it's a lot easier for Bernie to win state primaries than it was for Howard Dean, because there's only Bernie in the race. I mean, Howard Dean ran against the former vice presidential candidate, or he ran against John Kerry, he ran against John Edwards, he ran against Dick Gephardt. These were all extremely powerful, heavy hitters for that time period.
I forgot, was Joe Biden in that one?
I don't think so. No, Joe Biden ran against Obama and Hillary.
Right.
So there were a number of candidates in that. And in fact, John Kerry, I think, only lost. Every candidate that ran against John Kerry won one state. But we have to remember, after Bill Clinton locked up the nomination in 1992, Jerry Brown still won like 4 or 5 states after Bill Clinton had enough delegates to win the nomination.
All right.
So our party doesn't take marching orders. We're not the Republicans.
That's why we're Democrats. Karl Frisch here from Allied Progress, which we want to find out about next. When we come back here, take a quick break. We'll be back with Karl Frisch and you at 866-55-PRESS.
This is the Bill Press Show.
So this is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. If I see dot, I want you to just push the area.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan. Thank you. And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you. Oh, man. Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
This is the Bill Press Show.
They may in the introduction.
25 minutes after the hour now. Karl Frisch with us from Allied Progress, Executive Director, and Elise Foley from the Huffington Post. Karl's going to join us at the half hour. Tell us about Allied Progress. Congratulations.
Thank
New
you.
job for you, a new organization, right?
That's right. People can go visit alliedprogress.org. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook at Allied Progress. We are building a grassroots campaign organization that focuses on holding accountable the special interests, powerful special interests, individuals, corporations, institutions, elected officials that seek to profit off the misery of hardworking Americans. You know, payday lenders, for-profit colleges, people who, push risky financial products, people that are trying to silence these hardworking Americans through voter suppression tactics, folks that are trying to...
There's a long list there.
Yeah, big oil companies that are trying to raise the price of gas so they can make more money.
Well, I noticed that's where you've started with the oil companies, and people forget it because we're not... I mean, gas prices aren't as high maybe as they have been, although on the West Coast they are. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
They could be higher. I mean, right now in the Congress, there's a little movement afoot, thanks to Senator from Alaska, that would repeal the crude oil export ban. And that would do a number of things. First and foremost, it would probably raise gas prices. We'd lose American jobs. And we would risk the energy independence that we've been talking about wanting for a generation at this point. And it looks like it's being seriously considered after 40 years of being in place.
So on this energy front, you are looking toward new legislation or blocking legislation?
Well, right now,
about?
It would be great if the senators who are out there potentially considering this would drop it. Nobody is out there clamoring for anybody to repeal the crude oil export ban, except for oil and gas companies, because they want to be able to refine oil overseas for far cheaper. It would help grow China's economy. It wouldn't do much to help our economy. Experts say gas prices would increase by up to 14 cents a gallon. Working people, small businesses, they can't afford a 14-cent increase in gas that we don't need to have happen. Not to mention the number of refinery jobs that would be shipped overseas, or the number of boat-making, shipbuilding jobs that would be sent overseas. This is something we can't risk. And we wouldn't be able to get energy independence, which every politician in Washington has been clamoring for 40 years.
Yeah, I was just going to... Ever since I've been involved in politics, people have talked about energy independence, and
But they can learn more at alliedprogress.org and sign up, and we'll let them know when our campaign launches tomorrow.
Alliedprogress.org. Karl Frisch, Executive Director, and here's a friend of Bill for the next hour. Immigration.
Is the Bill Press Show.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds. At highway speeds, that's enough time to travel the length of a football field. Stop the texts. Stop the wrecks.
Before now, it's been difficult for criminals like us to know which states have loose gun laws. How would a criminal like me know which states permit me to carry loaded guns in their amusement parks, golf courses, or beaches?
I have some violent friends. We all wear leather jackets and scream at women. And we want to find out which states we can buy and sell guns easily.
CrimAdvisor.com. That's the site to find out where it's easiest for felons and fugitives to buy, carry, and even traffic guns.
That's why I love Arizona, where I can go see the beautiful Grand Canyon and carry a loaded gun without even having to get a background check.
You would fail that background check.
I'm sure of it. Now, what about a road trip? What states can I go to fill my trunk with guns and take it back home for my even more dangerous friends?
CrimAdvisor has a list for that.
That's so unreasonable.
Our traffickers' top 10.
Nevada! What happens in Vegas may have to stay in Vegas, but your guns don't. Bring them over to California and sell them.
The market up there is hungry for guns.
I understand that CrimAdvisor.com will tell me which states really cater to us criminals and creeps, but what about the states where we're not so welcome? The ones that don't get us?
I don't even like saying the name of these states, but California, Connecticut, Maryland, and New York all have laws to keep guns out of the hands of people like us.
I want to shoot California so bad.
Boo, California.
Boo, go home. Wow. CrimAdvisor.com has all this information?
Sure does.
CrimAdvisor.com. Plan your perfect getaway. Oh, like TripAdvisor.
Oh.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies.
In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer. Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now.
Please.
Connect with The Bill Press Show on Twitter. Follow us at BP Show and tweet using the hashtag WatchingBP. This is The Bill Press Show.
You got it 33 minutes after the hour. Here we go on The Bill Press Show. Our last half hour together on this Monday, August 24, coming to you live from Washington, D.C., our studio on Capitol Hill, where we are brought to you today by the United Steelworkers and their international president, the one and only Leo Gerard. Great guy, great fighter for the middle class of America and for keeping jobs in America. The United Steelworkers, North America's largest industrial union, representing over 1.2 million active and retired members. Check out their website at usw.org. Here on the Bill Press Show, Karl Frisch here with us from Allied Progress. As a friend of Bill for this entire hour, we'll be joined shortly by Elise Foley from Huffington Post. Sometimes Uber has a hard time finding our studio. I don't know why, but
Uber
I think
has a hard time finding anything in Washington.
I think they do. Yeah.
If you're ever
Uber
in Washington,
X.
Uber X, big mistake if you're in Washington D.C. Unless you have a choice to make. If you want to ride Uber X, you're going to play Google Maps. The role of Google Maps will be played by the consumer if you're in Uber X.
Right.
Otherwise, I highly suggest using Uber Taxi or regular Uber. Or if you really want to support your DC cab driver, just hail a cab.
Yeah.
But Uber X, unless it's a very cheap option, but unless you want to pay attention and tell them exactly where to go, you can use anything else.
Right. Somebody told me the other day that that's what Waze is for.
Waze is fantastic. I use it every day.
Absolutely incredible.
And I love reporting things. I reported a cop on the side of the road today. I'm very proud of myself. I got
you
6
did?
points. Yeah.
On Waze?
Connect with me on Waze, people. It's just my name, Karl Frisch. We can honk at each other.
I used Waze in San Francisco over my vacation.
Was it like
I used to live in San Francisco,
there's a hippie on the side of the road?
But it's been a long time since I've been there.
Caution VW bus.
And I was embarrassed, but I had to get from downtown all the way out to the Great Highway, out to the Ocean Beach.
Yeah.
And there's no direct road out
Right.
there, and I couldn't remember, so I used Waze, and it was great. It was incredible. And then we were talking about it, so I said, that's what Waze is for. Waze is so you can tell the Uber driver how to get there.
Yes, exactly.
Right. Speaking of the Uber driver and the aforementioned Elise Foley, who was having trouble with her Uber driver this morning, she has joined us in studio. Hi, Elise.
Sorry about that.
Nice to see you. No problem at all. I'm glad you finally persuaded him or informed him about how to get here, right?
Yeah, it took a while, but he figured it out.
Good to see you. Thank you. Relax. It's Karl Frisch. I don't know whether you guys have met
Hello.
or not. Okay, here we go. We wanted to. I'm glad you're here because suddenly there's this little internal controversy in the among Republican candidates for president about the 14th Amendment. You've been covering immigration issues for the Huffington Post. And about children of illegal people who came here illegally, who were born in the United States, and whether or not they should be automatically American citizens as the 14th Amendment applies. So do we yet know where Scott Walker stands on this issue?
Well, it's been complicated to see. Last week on Monday, he said, yeah, when asked, should we change the birthright citizenship? Then later in the week, he said he wasn't taking any stance. Yesterday, he said, no, he doesn't support changing the Constitution. So as of today, I have not heard any updates to that. So as of today, I think he does not support that. He says that he wants to secure the border, do other things, and then this won't even be a problem.
So he's been on both sides of the issue
in the last week, yes. But they've said his campaign has said
it's not quite the
they
full
haven't
Jebby.
changed their stance.
Right.
Jebby is doing it all in one day.
Oh.
Yeah, which he did on the Iraq War. So it's not quite the full Jebby.
Right.
Trying to coin that if you haven't noticed.
I like that. I like that phrase.
Just repeat it over
like
and
the
over.
full Ginsburg, right? The full Jebby is taking all positions in one
day. The full
day.
Ginsburg, if we remember, was Bill Ginsburg, Monica Lawyer's attorney, doing all 5 morning shows on a Sunday morning, and which coined the phrase, gave birth to the phrase, the full Ginsburg here in Washington, D.C. Now we have the full Jebby.
That's right.
Changing your position several times on the same day.
Right.
Right. Does this show to you, Karl, that maybe Scott Walker's not ready for prime time? Move your mic.
Maybe he read
Or
Hillary's
just move it up
tweet. I mean, when I think it was a National Journal reporter quoted Jeb Bush as saying, "What else do you call an anchor baby?" And Hillary Clinton replied, a baby, a child, an American citizen. Those are just a few options of what you could call an anchor baby, quote unquote. I think it shows a deference to the reality that Republicans can't win with a smaller fraction of the Hispanic vote than they've gotten over the last 2 election cycles. They need to grow that number. That said, I don't think anything in the current debate is going to ingratiate conservative politicians with the Hispanic community, or certainly not the women's community or the LGBT community anytime soon.
You used the phrase anchor baby. Is it a discriminatory term? Is it a racist term?
Well, judging from a lot of my Twitter mentions when I sort of went on a little rant on this last week, I think so. I mean, the image that I think a lot of people have when they say anchor baby is a woman from Mexico coming over here 8 months pregnant on purpose to have their child here.
Right.
And that image is usually that, this is an opportunistic person. People don't really say it in the context of them loving their child and wanting the best for their child or something like that. It's, somebody wanting to take advantage. And there actually is a phenomenon.
I think it's a horrible term. It's like dropping an anchor, so you've got a foothold in the...
It's no different than when they were calling, you had Louis Gohmert and all them talking about terror babies, how terrorists were going to come over here and have children so that they could have a plot to, have a terrorist act, because you need to have a child here to do that.
And the other thing is, there is a phenomenon, birth tourism, where people do come over, pay a ton of money, come over and have their kids here. Largely, I think, wealthy Chinese women. There is a phenomenon that exists. And I had some people insisting to me, and if you listen to Jeb Bush's remarks, if you read them, that is what he was saying. He was saying he doesn't want people to come over, and do that. But that's not what people picture when they say anchor baby. That's not what they're talking about. They're talking about, poor people coming over here to exploit us, take our welfare, all the other things that, they claim about what Mexicans and Central Americans do.
Well, now, Karl makes a point about the politics of this. At the last Republican debate, right, the two debates in one, right, there were 17 candidates on stage. We were talking earlier, and there was not one of the 17 there that supported marriage equality. There's also not one of the 17, including Jeb Bush, who supports comprehensive immigration reform. Isn't that correct?
Yeah, that's right. And that's, I guess you have Lindsey Graham. He hasn't backed away from it.
He's running.
Yeah, I know. I said yes, and then I was like, Lindsey
Rubio,
Graham.
The sponsor of it, has backed away.
Yeah. Lindsey Graham is also a sponsor of it, has not backed away to the same degree, at least.
And he's the front runner, Lindsey
right.
Graham. I mean, it's done so well for him in that base Republican primary. He's got to be at 2% now.
But as you point out, Marco Rubio was one of the co-authors of the original plan, right? Who then backed away from it. And Jeb Bush, I thought he was for it at one point, but now he's not. Again, he pulled the Jebby, the full Jebby, right? So what Karl was asking, I think, is an important point. With the autopsy report that the Republican Party did after they got thrashed in 2012, and they said, we've got to, Reince Priebus, this shows, we've got to reach out to the Latino community. We cannot win unless, in fact, the aforementioned Lindsey Graham said, it's a death spiral of the Republican Party unless we're the lead for comprehensive immigration reform. So here they are 4 years later, and they're as bad, if not worse, than they ever were on this issue. Right.
4 years ago, you had people blaming the fact that Romney said self-deportation for the fact that he did so badly with Latino voters. Now you have Trump as a front runner going out and saying we should deport literally every undocumented immigrant, including the ones that are parents of U.S. citizens, and that those U.S. citizens shouldn't even be U.S. citizens. I mean, that's even further than what Romney said. And so it just seems like they had this moment where they said, okay, we have this lesson, and then they've completely forgotten it. There was actually a memo from Hispanic Leadership Network, this group that Jeb Bush did some work with, that said, don't say anchor babies. It specifically said that. Now you have him saying the words anchor babies.
And asserting that he doesn't know any other word to use.
Right.
That's what he said up in New Hampshire.
Babies, children, American citizens, all options.
And he was telling the reporter, you come up with a better term and then maybe I could use that.
Right.
But,
No. It's frightening. it's frightening that this is where we're at in the 2016 election, that candidates are so flippant with real lives.
Well, I remember way back in the days when I was doing Crossfire on CNN, debating this issue with Pat Buchanan, who insisted that the answer was to deport everybody, every single person. At that time, maybe it was only 8 million. I don't know. I forget the number.
Well, that was back when Pat
here
Buchanan was the loving face of the Republican Party, right? He loved gay people. Nobody has ever said that Pat Buchanan doesn't like people of color. But I think the conservative wing of the party learned they should have learned in 1994 when Pete Wilson pushed through Proposition 187 that being antagonistic to Hispanics and Latinos was not a path to victory. There are a lot of Hispanic and Latino American citizens, and they look at that, they're not confused as to what you're saying about them. They're not going to vote for you if you continue to insult them.
And more of them are turning 18 every single year.
Yeah. And that what just stuns me is that the reason I mentioned the Pat Buchanan thing. So here we are 20 years later, and nothing has changed. I mean, there are still people who are saying that same thing today. As Donald Trump has said, yeah, we can deport them all and we can build a bigger wall. Oh, the immigration politics. Will anything happen? That's certainly one of President Obama's still goals, but any progress there at all? Any chance? Elise Foley here from the Huffington Post. Karl Frisch here from Allied Progress. And you join us at 866-55-PRESS when we come back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
I'm the retired bishop with the Episcopal Church as the bishop for all chaplains in federal service. I read that there was a group of people that represented a sense of injustice that I had. We'd lost Zuccotti. I mean, there was a kind of a hope that maybe Trinity Church would be gracious and give refuge. We picked this day where we would gather and demonstrate that Trinity was closing its ears to what was happening. We marched around the block, and I realized that, my goodness, they're carrying a ladder. And I thought, well, this is the moment. You could feel a spiritual presence. You could feel a certain something. And then the cops came in. It got brutal.
Yeah, I'm with you right here. Robin, I'm here.
The church needed, in this moment in history, to stand alongside of these protesters. The truth of Christ is found in the pews, is found in the institutional church, but it is also found in the streets. It's found in the honesty and the integrity, the insistence of people that you find in Occupy Wall Street.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight.
If you're headed out, turn down the AC. Or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
Magazine. This is the Bill Press Show.
12 minutes before the top of the hour. Yes, indeed, there once was a president who vowed that he would tackle the problem of immigration reform. He came up with a plan to do so, and it got passed through the United States Congress, granting amnesty. That's what he called it, to 5 million people who were here illegally at the time. That president was, of course, President Ronald Reagan. Boy, the Republican Party has changed. At least
that
Foley.
Liberal.
That liberal.
They
right.
love to talk about amnesty in 1986 or whichever year it was. They love to bring that up. They never say Ronald Reagan. They always keep that name away from it.
It is, yeah. It's
Pretend it wasn't him.
Well, amazing at the time. At least I just want to be sure we're talking Elise Foley here from Huffington Post and Karl Frisch from Allied Progress. I keep wanting to say that other organization used to be.
Well, just to underscore the point about how this is all about crass politics, Republicans have had no problem with granting amnesty to Cuban dissidents for generations. You know, the one, what is it, the dry foot doctrine or whatever?
Yeah.
If you get a foot on American soil, you're here. They've had no problem with that because those folks vote Republican. But they look at this and they see future Democratic voters. And by the way, the crazier Republicans who don't know how to mince their words, they'll say that. They will admit that this is because these people will vote for Democrats.
Elise, what about the argument we hear that this is not going to hurt the Republican Party because Latinos care about a lot of issues, not just immigration reform?
Well, that's true. That latter part is definitely true. You see in every poll, immigration is rarely people's top issue. You know, they care about economy, education, things like that. But there are also polls that show that this is very offensive to people. A lot of people who are Latino know somebody who is undocumented. They're more likely to know someone who's undocumented than a white person is. And it comes as a huge insult.
To have members of their family.
Right.
Blood relatives.
Know someone
or
very
to have
close
started
to
off
them.
that way. I mean,
yeah, right. So I'm sorry. Finish the point.
It's very offensive. Even if immigration is not your top issue, if you hear somebody going out and saying these things and their tone is this way and the policies they support are this way that you feel like are hurting your family member, your friend, your neighbor, then a lot of people, that's a litmus test, and they're not going to vote for somebody like that. It just rules the person out.
On no matter what they're saying is on other issues. Let's say a quick hello to John calling from out in Chicago on WCPT. Hello, John.
Hi. Thanks for taking my call.
Glad you're there.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes. Go ahead. John. Whoa. We did hear you, but you heard that beep, too.
Yeah.
Cell phones are great when they work, right?
They are.
Okay. So we started out, and it looked like that in this second term, having won really partly on this issue, clearly the difference between Mitt Romney and Barack Obama on this issue, that there was a possibility of getting some bipartisan immigration reform through this Congress. It ain't going to happen, is it?
No, absolutely not.
Can't even get a transportation.
There's no chance.
Anything.
I mean, it got through the Senate.
Yeah.
Then it just completely died in the House. They just did not take it up, and I think just the momentum completely died. And at this point, it's so toxic. I don't think there's any chance under Obama. They just say over and over that you can't trust him. Why would we do immigration?
They don't want to give him
Why
any
do
successes,
anything?
right? I mean, that's what it comes down to. Even if they know that it's in their best interest to get this done and out of the way, they don't want to give this to a Democratic president. If a Republican were elected, you could bet that they would pass some kind of immigration reform.
Well, I wonder. I mean,
a President Clinton or President Sanders, whoever the Democratic nominee is that becomes the next president, is going to have difficulty with Congress as well unless Democrats are elected.
Elise used the word, I think, which is toxic. George W. Bush had I thought, a pretty good comprehensive immigration reform plan. which he put in front of Congress.
Talk radio. Right-wing
Exactly.
talk radio.
Republican senators supported it until right-wing talk radio went out after it, and with all those crowds in the street, and Trent Lott and all those people at the time backed away from it, and George Bush couldn't get it through, and now Barack Obama can't get it through either.
Right.
Yeah, unbelievable. Lack of leadership on that issue as well as many others. We'll continue to watch that and continue to have fun with the 2016 front. Karl Frisch, great to see you.
Thanks, Bill.
Congratulations again. It's alliedprogress.org.
That's right.
Keep up with this new grassroots organization, and there are many important causes they're fighting for. Elise Foley, Huffington Post, thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
All right. I'll be right back with a quick parting shot.
This is the Bill Press Show.
How I've been affected by gun violence over the years is through deaths of friends and family members and associates.
When I was 5 years old, I was held at gunpoint in a home invasion.
I've gone to the juvenile detention centers and I've met dozens of young kids, babies really, who have been affected by gun violence.
Directly, I've lost a few friends, but I think why this touches my heart is having children of my own.
You know, I've been at parties where, I had just left the party and, maybe 10, 15 minutes later, I heard that, somebody got shot and didn't make it.
There are a lot of people benefiting off of our pain, and it's time we do something.
I'm here to unload my investment because I think that it's important that we start kind of seeing where our money is going.
It's time to go to your financial advisor and demand that there are no gun investments in your 401k.
Even if you don't have investments, you can still help spread the word.
This is something everyone can do.
So if you push your people that have 401ks, it might be your grandma, it might be your cousin, this effort can make a big impact.
I'm unloading for my loved ones that I lost.
I'm unloading for my 18-year-old self.
I'm unloading my 401k for the future of my children.
I'm unloading.
I'm unloading
for my family and their future.
I'm unloading so that my daughter can grow up in a safe, loving world.
Unload and join the movement.
Use hashtag I'm unloading to pledge your support for gun-free investing.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds. At highway speeds, that's enough time to travel the length of a football field. Stop the texts, stop the wrecks.
The Parting Shot with Bill Press. This is the Bill Press Show.
Okay, now I'm trying to figure this out. Before I left on vacation, on the political front, Donald Trump was dominating the Republican field. Chris Christie was sinking. Carly Fiorina was rising. Bernie Sanders was drawing record-sized crowds. Hillary Clinton was still mired in her email mess. And Joe Biden was reconsidering jumping into the race. And when I returned yesterday, everything was the same. Nothing had changed, which proves two things. First, that the presidential race of 2016 promises to be unlike any other we've ever experienced. Indeed, it already is. And two, It shows that anybody who tells you today that they know who the Republican and Democratic nominees are going to be is doing nothing but blowing smoke. That 2016 Democratic National Conventions are only a year away, and anything can happen between now and then. That's it for today, folks. We'll see you again tomorrow. Come on back.
This is the Bill Press Show.